If the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say this was their finest hour.
We stand for Queen,
country, and video games. BRB UK.
Worse teeth,
better accents.
Good afternoon, evening, morning, whatever time the hell you're listening to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 244 of the Big Red Barrel UK podcast. And those of you that have listened to us before, first of all, I'm sorry and thank you for returning. But also, you'll have noticed that, I am not Dan. I am also not Coleman. And I've been, thrown in at the deep end. Everyone's like, no, Tim never bloody presents. So yeah, here you go. This is me introing the show. Be careful what you wish for, because then you'll end up with me introing. Fortunately, even without a Dan and a Coleman, although we will be hearing a bit from one of them later, but without them, you don't have to put up with a whole hour of me. Oh, phew. Oh, that's a relief for all of us. But even more relieving is the fact that we have the excellent Diarmuid joining me on the show.
Hello there.
Hello there, sir. And how is you?
Not too bad, not too bad.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's all going good for me.
Oh, that's good.
I had a day off today. I spent almost all of it playing Mass Effect Andromeda, realizing
day off.
that it was not as bad as everyone was saying.
Yes,
but
I
that's
tried
mostly
to say
because
that.
Yeah, mostly because number one, the impression I had from it, as long as it didn't trip over itself on its way on, like in the loading screen, it would have been better than what people had said about it. But also the fact that this is post-patch, or multiple patches at this stage, I'm guessing.
Well, it's post-patch. It also didn't, come straight out of the gate and shoot your dog in the face or anything.
Exactly. It didn't just spontaneously make my PlayStation 4 just go on fire.
That's an improvement from what the internet said it was.
Exactly, from the expectations that were set by the internet. So
yeah, I was trying to make that case for it beforehand. It's still a really enjoyable game.
It is.
The weird facial things aside, which I'm hoping, and by the looks of things from what I've seen of screenshots, has been patched out, there is still a very enjoyable Mass Effect-esque game in there. And
yeah,
as I said, we said last week that it seems like it's been canned and the whole team's been kind of, well, maybe not downsized, but put down to a kind of support studio status type thing. I think it's a real shame, because I really would have liked to have seen where the next game took it. But hey. Let's not rehash old news, though, sir. Let's get stuck into new news, because there is quite a bit of it.
That's why I mentioned it right at the top, just to mix
Get
it up
that way.
But yes, I'm really actually looking forward to this news piece we're going to talk about. This is really kind of cool.
And the first one is a real doozy as well. People, I think we've probably talked about Netflix enough that we probably should be sponsored it. I'll point out that we are not.
Possibly, yeah.
but Netflix, if you want to sponsor us, that's absolutely fine. But yeah, basically, for anyone that didn't hear this week, Netflix announced that it is bringing a Witcher TV show to the fore. So yeah, this is good news, no?
Yeah, this is really good, actually. And one of the things that I was kind of surprised to learn about is it's not anything to do with the games. So this is based on the original books by Andrzej Sapkowski. I'm going with that.
Good work. See, I left you to have to say the name.
It's probably completely wrong, and people are screaming down their earphones at me going, that's wrong, it sounds
anglicised enough to be correctish enough, basically.
Exactly. So it's based on the books. It's not based on the games. The game, CD Projekt Red are still working on Cyberpunk. They're doing that, and it's completely separate to them. However, the good news is that the show itself, number one, it's being made by Netflix, and they have a kind of just a decent level of quality about them. Like, they haven't really done anything truly terrible yet, that I've seen, at least.
Some people may kind of argue the case for Iron Fist being on the poor side of things. I still thought it was entertaining and better than most of the previous, superhero things that we used to have. Maybe not up to their standards, but...
Even I thought it was, a terrible Marvel TV show, but, in the realms of Marvel TV shows like that, they're
That's
pretty
still a
high
high
up.
bar,
So
yeah.
it's, exactly. So it was one of those cases where once Netflix announced that they were doing the show, I was like, okay, so that's a level of quality. At least you know you're getting that much.
Exactly.
But also the fact that it turns out that the writer, I'm not going to try and attempt to pronounce his surname again, is coming onto the show as a consultant,
That also
as well
good.
as a guy named, why did I do this to myself? Thomas Baginski.
Yep, I think that's good.
He works with a different company, not CD Projekt Red, but he works with a different company that they kind of outsourced their video, like FMV videos to.
Right,
so
okay.
he did all of the intros to the Witcher games. And he also did the teaser trailer that they released quite a while back for Cyberpunk 2077. Okay. And like he's been involved with The Witcher, the games, for quite some time. And he is clearly talented, so the fact that he's going to be directing at least one episode of the show in its first season is quite exciting. And for any fans of The Witcher, I think this is really good news.
My understanding of it, and I think this is me remembering from an E3 presentation a few years ago, so it's possibly a bit sketchy, but from my understanding, the Witcher games take part in the kind of latter part of Geralt of Rivia. It's the later part of his life, really. He's quite an older person as we encounter him in the game.
Sort of, yeah. Basically, the books kind of cover his early career, you could say. And then it's sort of, I think the first game sort of blends the latter part. And then like I think he gets amnesia after the first one and goes into the second one. And from there, it's kind of new stuff that the author hasn't written. So it's kind of separate to that. So you like they have the opportunity to go out and find kind of a young actor and kind of turn them into what they need for Geralt.
And that gives them a bit more source material to work from. But it also, I think that's actually really good news for anyone that anyone that read the book and is a fan of the books is presumably going to be quite excited by that anyway.
Yeah.
But anyone that's just a fan of the video games, that's actually quite cool because this is going to be like a prequel to those video games story-wise, basically. So
exactly. It's not just going to be a rehash of what they've already played. This is something for them new. For readers of the book, it's something that they haven't seen kind of created yet because the games take place later. So it's good news all around, I think.
Yeah, really good news. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, that it's the series of books have been massively popular in Poland, and CD Projekt Red is a Polish developer that's kind of worked hand in hand with them and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it will be interesting to see if it's internationalized in any way. If Geralt starts being played by Scarlett Johansson, then we might be in problem. Might be running into problems. But
I think the casting director really needs to look at themselves if that's the case.
But hey, it might make the sex scenes pretty good. But anyway,
it could. Yes, very true, very true. I can't wait to see my first unicorn.
But yeah, I mean, I also think it's quite good news in the fact that like Netflix will be more likely to treat this as a proper adult property as well, basically. So
yeah, exactly. I think that's what's going to be good. Like, obviously, a lot of more cynical people are basically going to be saying, okay, Netflix basically want their Game of Thrones, and this is kind of an easy way to do it.
No bad thing.
That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, very good thing.
More of that kind of stuff is good. That's kind of what we want. We want something as entertaining as that. But I really think for fans of games and like nerds who like TV shows, now is a really good time because we just recently had the Dread Mega City 1 announcement as well from Rebellion.
Very pleased about that as well. Yeah.
So this is all really good. I'm really looking forward to the next while when we actually get these projects delivering and hopefully doing really good.
Well, I mean, I did write an article back in my sarcastic gamer days that was called "The Golden Age of Geekdom." And it was just generally saying that, the geeks shall inherit the earth. And basically, we've taken over cinema, we're taking over TV. But yeah, I mean, I do think that Netflix especially, and I'm guessing it's partly because of the type of audience they built by having an online service type thing, and, a streaming type service. It does seem to be one that does particularly pick up on very nerdy themes as well, and very nerdy kind of loves and interests, basically.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. It's like it has all of the kind of stuff that we look for, which is probably why we like it so much. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. This could be really, really good. Hopefully they deliver. I think everything is stacked in their favor at this stage. All they can do now is fail.
Hopefully not. But I didn't see any news about a kind of release date or anything like that. But they don't seem to take too long to develop these things, though, generally, from announcement to actually getting them on the service, basically.
Especially because this is, I'm assuming, going to be live action. Now, I know the guy that was involved, that Baginski guy, did like CG trailers. But I'm assuming this is going to be live action, and just the CG is going to be used like for the creatures and stuff in the game and whatnot.
Yeah, presumably.
You never know. Like if they do go the CG route, that might actually take them longer. So
yeah,
I don't know. It'll depend on what Netflix kind of do. They could go animated as well, like they've done the Voltron series that was animated. They've done they've spread themselves quite well across and hitting all of these different kind of genres and stuff, so they could do whatever the hell they want, and hopefully they just deliver something that's good, really. That's all I really care about. As long as it's entertaining, we're good.
As long as it's good and entertaining, and well, probably we'll have boobs as well, which
Indeed.
I know we're both
especially if it's Scarlett Johansson.
Boob fanboys. Well, that remains to be seen, but we'll see. Right, talking of things that remain to be seen as well, we heard this week that Ubisoft can't be bothered to wait for E3 by the looks of things.
No, they seem to have splurged early, haven't they?
Maybe they just didn't want Aisha Tyler swearing up a storm and getting her lady boners all excited. But Ubisoft Financial Call basically gave updates on pretty much every title they seem to have in the works, other than the kind of Raving Rabbids thing, which is heavily rumoured that they seem, the Mario crossover.
I bet you that Raving Rabbids thing is going to be the
big
sticker
reveal
at the end.
Yeah.
The sticker at the end of their conference that they have every single year, that kind of thing that no one knows about.
One coming. Yes, we did, actually. Sorry. But we did. But yeah, I mean, generally, good news. I mean, it's all stuff that we kind of knew about a little bit, but South Park, The Fractured Butthole, has got a release date, which is good news. The bad news is how blooming far away it is, considering it was supposed to come out at the end of last year.
17th of October is quite a long distance from last year. I mean, you really have to think, what did they have to do to this game to get it that far? Is it something that's actually probably pretty close to finished, but they think 17th of October is a good time? Because traditionally it's not. Traditionally it's right in the middle of all these other huge releases.
Exactly, and it seems like it might South Park's a big enough name, but it still feels like it might get a little bit lost in the big shuffle of, your big Call of Duties and all the big guns coming out around that sort of year. But what was so wrong that they had to delay it? One of the only things I can think of is they wanted to delay it for a particular reason, and having delayed it for a certain length of time, getting Matt and Trey back on board to
promote
things and promote
things,
it and do everything. Perhaps that was difficult if they've got another series of South Park coming up this year, possibly. Because it does sound like they go, all in and full attention on that to try and turn the new series of South Park round in a very quick period of time. And that's the only kind of legitimate reason I can think that it would take to delay that long, because I can't see why they would delay it that long from a game development standpoint.
I don't know, all we can do is speculate on why it's taking so long, but what's even more worrying is the next kind of item in this.
Well, before we move there, though, I think one of the main worry things for me is that October the 17th is so near the end of the year that if something does happen, it might slip into next year, which I'm extra concerned about, because this was on my my hot games for and this is a big competition now between me, Dan, and Coleman, and I don't want to be losing points for that not coming out this year. But hey, anyway, sorry, you were saying the next item?
Well, yeah, just the fact that the next thing they said as well was that Assassin's Creed, The Crew, and Far Cry, those franchises are also going to return in basically this fiscal year, which basically means that it's going to return anytime before the 31st of March. So you can expect maybe one of those games will be in 2018.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing at least two of them are going to be before
This
the
year,
holidays.
yeah.
Exactly. Which means they're going to fall fairly close to South Park as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty stacked end of the year, you would have to think.
Yeah, but that might be the other reason that South Park got shunted into that window, but possibly because they want, the two previous windows to be uncontested with two of these games, basically. So I think it actually might be indicating that we might be getting, Assassin's Creed, which, they took a year off so they could possibly get that out a bit earlier in the year than they normally do, possibly.
Maybe.
Or we could get The Crew or Far Cry, basically this year. I mean, I think it's more likely that Assassin's Creed's definitely going to be this year sometime, with them taking a year off. So I think it'll be between The Crew and Far Cry as to which gets delayed into next year. And if I was gonna guess, I'd say Far Cry, just because that's another open world game it shares more similarities with Assassin's Creed, basically.
Exactly. As we've seen this year, open world games at the start of the year tend to do pretty bloody well. So yeah, that might be a good shout. That might be a good shout.
Exactly, and it's good. It's a good time to get a bit of time to breathe. Assassin's Creed is obviously no surprise. We knew that was coming back this year. Far Cry 5, as the logo teased it as, is a nice surprise. We didn't get many details on that, and people are speculating as to whether it will be returning to one of the previous islands we've been on, or whether it's a whole new place. I did see there was some rumours that, oh my god, it looks like the Wild West, and then that's been rubbished, and then it was oh my god, it looks like something else, and I could see them going on a different tangent with this somehow. But I think they'll still try and tie it to some sort of island base type thing, right?
Possibly. I mean, the main rumour that I've heard multiple people mention is Montana, and that's why people were mentioning the Wild West. They assumed, okay, Old West sort of setting set in Montana. And then I heard more people suggesting that it actually might be modern day Montana. But again, that kind of rubbishes the island bit. Whether any of that's true or not, no one knows. I'm sure we'll find out at E3 anyway.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
probably
just one
when
of
we'll
those
get more details on that.
Exactly.
Time,
that's one of those cases where, I to be honest with you, even Far Cry Primal, which I didn't enjoy nearly as much as the previous 2 or 3 games, was still alright. It was still good. So
I heard reasonable things about them.
I'm hoping that because a game like Horizon has come out, which basically took that Far Cry formula and improved on it quite a bit, I'm hoping the developers have looked at that and kind of made some last minute tweaks to possibly, make their game a bit better as well.
The only thing I found about Far Cry Primal was, it seemed to me that it was born in the same kind of vein as Far Cry Blood Dragon was.
Yeah.
But then instead of being a small downloadable thing that they did on the cheap, they tried to expand it into more of a full game.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily... I think it would have been much more highly praised and would have been better received had they not tried to push it down that avenue.
To be honest with you, for me, it was more the focus changing from kind of doing towers and stuff like that to hunting and crafting. That kind of didn't... I like it as being part of the game, but not being what seemed to be the primary focus. But that's a different issue. But
I was going to say, for me, Horizon Zero Dawn proved that you can take that formula, put a very slight twist on it, and still make it very enjoyable.
Yeah.
You were still climbing towers in Horizon Zero Dawn. They just happened to be tall necks that were massive creatures that were walking around in circles.
Very true, but what I liked, and I think I put this in the review I wrote for the site as well, what I liked about Horizon was they did it with moderation.
Yeah.
You didn't open up a map and just have it littered with icons to go to do the same thing over and over again. Now, as you say, there were towers, but there was only, 5 or 6 of them?
Yeah.
And each one was completely different in how you had to approach it. So
yeah.
I hope they do the same thing. I hope they just take those kind of... everyone likes collectathons and everyone likes doing those things. They just don't want to spend so much time doing that it takes away from the main quest.
Yeah, and I don't like being overwhelmed with those number of things, especially when it's
Exactly.
they just seemed like, like copy and paste kind of repetitions of what we've done before. So
Yeah.
But also they kind of mentioned that the Division developer Massive Entertainment is currently working with Fox on a game based on the world of James Cameron's Avatar.
Yeah, that's weird.
Do you remember Avatar? You know that biggest selling movie of all time thing that was going to be like 5 movies, and then they made one, and then James Cameron disappeared off the face of the earth into an abyss, possibly.
It's still going to be 5 movies, apparently. It's just we haven't seen any of them except the first one yet. And I mean, I think the biggest news from this was the fact that they're aiming for, or they're looking to get this released by about fiscal year 21, which is basically the fiscal year of 2021.
Right.
We're looking at 4 years bloody time. Why they even mention this, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I know it's an earnings call and they have to kind of keep the investors happy and whatnot, but for gamers out there, we're just like, okay, so that means we're not going to get much Division stuff then.
That
okay.
might not even be on this console generation then, kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. That's going to be PlayStation 5 and Xbox, whatever they call it, 2?
Wasn't there an Avatar game on release on that, like when in line with the last film that was on 360? I seem to remember it being one of the first games that had like 3D in it.
Yeah, I remember that coming out. I didn't play it myself, and I don't even remember who actually made it.
I played it at EGX. I don't think it was Ubisoft, but I can't remember. Anyway, it's one of those things of, nice one. Come back and tell us, in the same half a century you're releasing the game type of thing. It's hard to be excited for Avatar. Like, I know a lot of people shit on Avatar from a great height for being derivative story and blah, blah, blah. I thought it was cinematically very entertaining, and there's a reason why it's the number 1 selling film of all time type thing.
True.
I mean, like,
Very true.
It did 3D better than anyone had done it before, and did it really well. And like, it reinvigorated cinema. And in terms of people going out and seeing 3D movies, there's a reason that we still have 3D movies, playing now. And Avatar was probably it. So yeah, interesting. Anyway, I will be keen to see the next film, although I'm not exactly sitting on tenterhooks waiting till 2020 to do so. So speaking of cinema, I guess let's go with that segue.
That works.
The Marvel superhero universe is being re-immortalized in Lego once again, built brick by brick from the ground up, in Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 being announced by Warner Brothers.
I actually wouldn't mind. I played the Marvel Superheroes Lego game on, I think it was like one of the launch games on the PlayStation 4. And I remember I played it and I actually enjoyed it. But like most of the Lego games, I got a little bit into it and I was like, I'm sick of collecting stuff, and then I stopped.
Yeah. There was that one really good puzzle at the beginning of the game that went, oh yeah, they've done new things and done new stuff. And then you go, oh, but it's the same old formula. It's a weird one. I really like Lego games, and I really see how they have their place, especially in terms of a really good sort of family-friendly game to sit round one TV together and co-op with, multiple people in the family. And I guess Lego Marvel Superheroes is more likely to attract me than the others, but they're still not likely to have the Punisher in, so,
That's going to be the thing that decides it.
I think he might have actually been in the last one. I think I seem to remember people talking about the Punisher van being in there somewhere and stuff, but I could be wrong.
I didn't play it enough, unfortunately, to find out. But still, this one could be good. I mean, the Lego games are never bad.
Yeah.
They're always at least good.
It's like a Netflix superhero.
Exactly, to bring it all the way back.
Yep.
But it's one of those cases where it's like, they're never bad, and they're kind of like, they're doing the right thing. They're releasing on pretty much everything. They're releasing in November, just before like people are thinking about buying presents for young ones and whatnot. I mean, this could be quite good. We'll have to obviously wait and see what they're including.
I like the way the announcement says, released on November 17th for all these things, with a Nintendo Switch version coming in time for Christmas. I'm like, you do realise that November the 17th, that was in time for Christmas. That was probably when you wanted to release the Switch version as well, just saying.
That's the thing. I'm guessing that they had this all lined up to release on that time, and they were thinking, oh, another Nintendo console. Then March happened, Switch blew up, and they were like, oh crap. We need to accelerate this.
Yeah. Details about the game as well. They say that the story will see heroes and villains from across the Marvel dimensions taking on Kang the Conqueror, and will feature a new hub world of Chronopolis.
Sure.
That's part of the Marvel universe I am less familiar with. I thought Kang the Conqueror was from Turtles myself, but okay.
I believe that's Krang,
right.
But okay.
Right. Indeed it is. Talking of things I'll probably get wrong. Here we go. Let's see if I can get through this one. Parappa the Rapper creator has launched a Kickstarter. So, this is where they might go badly. So, Nana, Ansha, and Insys have launched a Kickstarter seeking 1.1 million in funding for their previously announced rhythm-based adventure game tentatively titled Project Rabbit. See, I knew I'd get something wrong. I nearly got the rap
in partnership with Ubisoft.
But yeah, according to the project's Kickstarter page, Project Rabbit. There we go. I did it. We're okay.
Coleman, edit those together really quickly so it actually sounds like he's saying it properly.
Sounds like I said it like a normal human person. It is in the works for both PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC, and will have an explosive mix of Japanese folklore and traditional artwork, hip-hop, and humorous battle rap face-offs. Now, I did see a little bit about the Kickstarter and a little bit about the trailer, but I definitely think this is a better one to leave for Mr. Coleman, because this is definitely in his wheelhouse of, oh my god, I like this type of game.
Absolutely.
I know how much he liked the Parappa the Rapper, and generally likes rhythm games and stuff. That's not really my bag. You're a bit more of a rhythm game fan, is that fair?
I played Parappa when I was kind of younger, but I didn't get the re-release because I heard that the timing was still messed up on that. But this still kind of excites me purely because what they've said when they've been talking about the game is that Parappa isn't really a rap game in that it's predefined and it's just like a rhythm game or whatever. One of the things they've tried to introduce with this apparently is you actually, not only do you have the standard rhythm part of trying to keep time with the icons that are flashing across the screen,
yep,
but they're also allowing you to basically rap battle yourself. So what you do is as you're battling someone else in the game, you choose what type of response you're going to get. Are you going to go for humor? Are you going to insult? Are you going to coerce them? Yeah. You have all these different options, and you can kind of select. It's almost like in the WWE games, you have where you do the stage presence thing, and you have to choose what kind of response you're going to go for.
Right, okay.
And you're trying to play to the crowd and kind of get them on your side or whatever you're trying to do. It sounds like it's a mix of that plus the rhythm game. So that's two things that Coleman really likes.
Yeah,
so I really can't wait to see what he's going to say about this.
That's going to send his anticipation for this off the charts. He's really going to.
Exactly.
Really going to. But yeah, basically, I think, wasn't it you that were saying that the Kickstarter campaign originally said that if they breached 4 million, they would do a version for Nintendo Switch? But they've dialed that back a bit, yeah? When they
first announced the stretch goals were also published, and right at the bottom was the Nintendo Switch version, which people wouldn't get unless the project went over $4 million or something like that. And a load of fans, there was a huge fan outrage because the Switch is the new hotness, apparently.
Yeah.
And because of that, they've revised that now, and when it hits the 1.5 million mark, you'll get the Switch version. Now, there's still later stretch goals as well. It just means that people who are backing this are more likely to get that Switch version if they do back it.
Okay, well, I mean, that's good. That means you can be rap battling on the top of little roof gardens and basketball courts with your Switch. That seems very appropriate somehow. So yeah,
absolutely.
Even though Parappa the Rapper to me always speaks as a Sony title, I'm pretty sure that was the case. No, anyway, but yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't remember it being on anything else, so that was kind of strange. But like the fact that they're doing it on everything, obviously more people get to play it, so hopefully that's a good thing.
And from previous Sony titles to previous Microsoft titles, going from one to the other.
Actually, this news is really going to disappoint Bleezy.
Yeah,
really
upset Bleezy. It's not that, there's no more pigeons or anything, Bleezy. It's okay. You can still go on. But there were some rumours flown around about Halo 6 being announced at E3 and being revealed at E3. That has been declined by 343 Industries. They have said, access denied.
The community manager for 343, his name is Brian Gerard?
Let's go with that. Yep.
Anyway, he was on Reddit, and he basically, I think that when it started picking up steam, I'm fairly sure 343 just wanted to get out there and just kind of temper expectations, because if they showed up to E3 and revealed something much smaller and not Halo 6, it would have caused a meltdown.
Halo so they got out 2.
Exactly. They got out there really early, and they've just said, okay, Halo 6 will not be at E3. However, we are bringing something small, something to E3. So I'm guessing it's either going to be some sort of a something Halo related. So it could either be a mobile game again or something.
Assault 2.
It could be that, or more likely just a DLC announcement to get people back into Halo 5 before Halo 6 is properly announced, which I'm guessing, seeing if they couldn't get that done in time for the Scorpio, it's probably not going to be until next E3, but we'll see.
I've actually got myself a copy of Halo Wars 2 to play through at some point. I picked it up on rental, but I still haven't had a chance to play it just because it came at a bad time with being thrown lots of cool things to review and other bits and bobs to talk about, which we'll be talking about later in the show, but hey.
Exactly, yeah. So I think they just wanted to get out in front of this to make sure that the hype train didn't get too much up to steam. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to stop it, and when nothing happened, it would have crashed right into them.
It seems odd, because it seems like it would have been the right time to announce a Halo 6, no?
I think so, and I think that would have been a huge thing if they could tie it into Scorpio, because I think that's what Microsoft kind of want to do. They want to come out with a big heavy hitter. The fact that it's not ready to announce and they haven't tried to force it, I think is actually a good thing.
Well, a good thing for Halo, maybe not a good thing for Scorpio or Microsoft.
Well, exactly, possibly. I mean, I think it's going to be a good thing in the long run, because I think it looks like 343 are getting the time and support to just get make the game that they feel they need to make to the quality that they need to make it.
That certainly didn't seem to happen with Halo 5, unfortunately.
Exactly. So I'm hoping that's a kind of a lesson learned, and they're going to take that away. They're going to really focus on Halo 6, get that really good, and when it does release, it's going to be a huge seller and get the series possibly back on track, hopefully. But we'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
But speaking of sequels...
Ooh, new sequels.
That we actually do want to play as well, and that we do hope is good. Yeah, Life is Strange. Did you play Life is Strange?
I did not. Now, Alex played it and has it on her console, and I always meant to kind of actually pick it up and play it at a time when I was just, playing on her console through my profile or whatever. But yeah, I just never quite got around to it. But I always heard really good things, and it's one I wouldn't mind getting back to at some point.
It's definitely worth playing, in my opinion. It's a really good game. It's obviously a kind of an adventure game similar to the Telltale games, but it's made by Don't Nod Entertainment, and
so it won't crash at every given opportunity.
Exactly, and it actually performs much, much better than the Telltale games, which just adds to my frustration that Telltale still haven't bloody upgraded their engine. But anyway, that doesn't matter. What I did want to bring up was this news story that was announced, I think it was today, that basically they've sold like 3 million copies of Life is Strange. It's been really, really popular. And because of that, they've announced that they're going to they're working on a sequel. It's not going to show up at E3 or anything like that, but they just kind of wanted to let fans know that they were working on it. And to be honest with you, that's good news. I'm really looking forward to what they do with the game, and I think I'm not going to spoil this, but the way it ends, and it's going to be really interesting how they move forward. Basically, that's all I'll say.
Announcing that you're not going to be at E3 this year is the new announcing you're going to be at E3 this year. There seems to be more people announcing that they're not there than there are. Like, I think all the public's going to turn up and there's going to be Nintendo Switch and playing ARMS and nothing else. Speaking of which, though, there was a Nintendo ARMS Direct this week. And I'd say an ARMS Direct because, one, that's what it was called, and two, I don't know about you, that sounds like the budget version of kind of the rival to Stark Enterprises weapon division.
Hammer Industries.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. You haven't seen this yet, no? Is that correct?
No, so I haven't watched the Direct, and it's one of those things that I really probably should get around to because... As I was talking to you about this before, like, I have a Switch.
Yep.
I'm basically, like, the main target for ARMS. Yep. I should be getting this, and they just haven't sold me on it yet. But based on what you're about to say, hopefully it changes my mind.
When they first announced it, with all the kind of news of Switch, I was a bit like, really? That looks a bit lame. It looks like Wii boxing done badly, almost, type of thing. I mean, like, it really didn't appeal to me that much. But... almost immediately afterwards, I actually went on and checked out some more details when they had it on Club Treehouse or whatever the bloody hell they call it. But yeah, they had some more details on there, and they had one of the developers on and talking more about the game. And like just those details alone, I was like, okay, I think you may have sold me on this game already. Even more so from now having watched I'll preface this with I've watched most of the Direct while kind of working a little bit, so I haven't necessarily caught up on all the details. But there were a lot of details they did drop in as well. New fighters who we were kind of expecting, and a few more details on some of the fighters that we had. It seems like every individual fighter, and I think there's 10 different fighters they've announced, and every individual fighter it fights slightly differently, but then also has like 3 unique type of arms, and bearing in mind that you can then combo those on either the left or the right arm, and you can have like both of them, or you can have like the different setups. That does give you quite a few different combinations for each fighter as well, basically. And some of them do seem to be, like slight variances from one person to another, but a lot of them are like, really fight quite differently. And they were explaining like the differences between like, you have light, medium, and heavy kind of fists, and a heavier fist than will always block a lighter fist type thing, but the lighter ones are obviously faster. And it's kind of all working on that sort of mechanic and being able to block with the heavier ones and being able to sort of fool people into doing them. And things have got like bigger arcs, so they're harder to block because they come round from the side more and stuff like that. So there does seem to be like quite a bit of nuances to the actual like fighting stuff. And I don't know if you saw this week as well, there was a few people that actually got hands-on with it, and most of them seem to be singing its praises as well, basically. Some of the other details that dropped in the actual Direct were talking about new modes. I think from the Treehouse thing that I saw before, that they talked about, like, some of them, there was like bonus modes where you were like hitting targets and picking up different fists and all this type of stuff. But on top of that, they've announced some modes that look really quite cool as well. There's a volleyball mode where it's kind of, it looks almost like literally like a game of volleyball, but it's just one-on-one. Like, you don't have teams that you're knocking it up to, but you can like knock it up to one fist and the other, and your fists can go across, like unlike in real world volleyball where you can't actually cross the net at all, because you've got like really long fists, you can actually like cross over the net and go onto your opponent's side of the court and sort of block it from there and stuff like that. So that looks like, that alone looks like it could be really good fun and could be, add a quite different new dimension to the game. They also had a basketball mode, but the basketball thing was a bit different. As well as being able to throw punches at people, you can, I think it's like, if you're doing both fists at once or a slightly different command or whatever, but you can grab people and throw them as well. In the basketball mode, you are grabbing them, throwing them, and dunking them through the ring as you're doing it. And they showed some of the dunks off and stuff like that, and I was just like, Oh my god, that looks so cool.
So this is the new Shack Attack.
Yes,
okay,
yes.
so that's it. That's cool. That's cool.
And yeah, as I said, like pretty much everything that I saw was just like more depth than I thought, more modes than I thought type thing, and just everything that they showed about it was like, oh, okay. And I think I mentioned the same thing before after the Treehouse thing, but I'll say it again. I expect ARMS to be more of a system seller for Switch than any other game since Zelda.
Interesting.
Remains to be seen. And look, I'm sure some people would have picked it up for Mario Kart 8, but Mario Kart 8 didn't exactly help shift Wii U's on its own, so you can't say that that's necessarily going to be big. And perhaps there's not that many games in contention about this, but I really do think that it's not just the fact that it's going to be a good, solid game. I think it's helping to reinvigorate and reinvent the fighting genre, which is something that I think has stagnated for years almost kind of thing. But then I also think it's going to lend itself really well to the controls of having those two Joy-Cons. I think that's where it's really going to come into its own, in the same way that Wii Sports really showed off the hardware. I think this will really show off the hardware better than any other game has before, basically.
Very nice.
So, yeah, I encourage you and everyone else to go watch the Direct and possibly get as excited about this as I am. My only bad side to that is I don't know when I can afford a Switch, and it's not going to be in time for the June the 16th launch. The other good news, though, there is that if you are a Switch owner, they are doing a kind of, they had I can't remember what they called. What was the one they did on?
Oh, it was like a test launch or something. Or
Test Fire, wasn't it?
Test Fire, yes, that's the one.
They're doing a similar thing with ARMS Directs, an ARMS Open Invitational teaser, basically. So, and that is downloadable 2 days before launch on June the 14th as well. So, if you're a Switch user, they're giving you the chance to try that out. And I think that also shows how confident they are in this title, basically, because they've only been doing that with like Splatoon and some of their bigger games. I think this one's really going to hit hard. So hey,
yeah.
Just before we move on to what we have done played, which Diarmuid and I will be coming back with in a minute, although Diarmuid may have mentioned that he's only really played Mass Effect Andromeda.
But yes,
we do have some exciting things to talk about, and we'll come back with that in a sec. But before we get there, as I alluded to before, you will be hearing from Dan, and you will also be hearing from Kev. Now, in case anyone wasn't aware, in case you've been hiding under a big space rock on the other side of the moon, you may have been aware that Destiny 2's been announced. And there was a reveal for that I think going on as me, Diarmuid and I are speaking right now. But who better to talk about it with Dan than Kev from the Barrelcast? And both of them will be joining us right about here to come give you some details.
Hello, and indeed ahoy hoy, and welcome to either the first bit or the second bit of episode 244 of BRB UK. Why are we in two parts? I hear you say. Why? Because 2 isn't the magic number, it's one less than the magic number, but we'll make do. Because it's Destiny 2 reveal day. I am hot and sweaty straight off the back of Twitch. I have collected my thoughts, and I've brought somebody with me to help collect my thoughts even further. It is a man who flies through the night. He quite likes Pepsi Light. He sometimes gets in fights. I don't think you're quite a nice bloke. It's Kev. Hello, Kevin White.
I was just about to say, it doesn't really make a lot of sense with all that build-off if you don't say the surname.
No, it doesn't. Denizen of the internet, Kevin White.
I brought my fishing net. We're going to collect some thoughts here and take him home with us and
give him a little tickle on the belly.
Yeah, and then fry up some Destiny chat.
Oh, he's a little fishy. Anyway, so Kev has torn himself away from inducting me into the PC Master Race, which is currently what I've been doing.
Elite Dangerous.
Yeah, mate, Elite Dangerous. That's a thing in space, but we're not here to talk about that, Kev. I know you're excited about having a new convert to the PC clan.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thanks for joining me to talk about Destiny. We thought we'd break this out in a separate bit because I know some of you listeners don't like it when I talk about Destiny. So this gives you the chance that if you don't want to listen to me talk about Destiny, you don't have to. But it's fair, I reckon.
Yep.
So, Kev, thanks for joining me, buddy.
You are more than welcome, good sir.
Why the sudden interest in Destiny? Do you just want to ruin DLC Day for me again? Is that what it is?
No, I've been looking forward to Destiny 2 since I've realised what Destiny 1 was, and that was a game that they didn't get to do what they wanted to do, so I've been looking forward to Destiny 2 since, 2014.
Well, I mean, that's very much the thing that, Destiny 1, A, they got ahead of themselves, B, they didn't have realistic expectations, C, I think they were stymied by having to support the previous generation of consoles and using an engine that still, as far as I can work out, had some tech kicking about from Halo days in it as well. So this is a proper new start in many, many, many ways. And that's good, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they've blown up my stuff, your stuff, but most importantly my stuff, Kev.
Well, let me tell you, Luke Smith, his opening segment, his opening little speech there was all about this grand theme of starting over from scratch and getting things right this time. He didn't say it in so many words, but that was the theme that he was going after. And that made me very positive straight away.
Well, it was a very awkward bit in the pre-show where Deej, the community manager for Bungie, was having a quick chat with Jason Jones. And you could tell they knew they slightly done messed up with Destiny 1. I mean, Luke Smith is the golden boy. I mean, Luke Smith was behind Vault of Glass, which was the standout best bit of content in Vanilla Destiny, and then was behind the best expansion in Destiny 1, which was The Taken King, which even the most miserable Destiny-hating people out there will grudgingly agree they got a lot of stuff right with that.
I was one of them.
And Luke Smith is doing the whole thing with Destiny 2. So we're going to go through it in this order. We're going to go through a bit about the little tidbits of the story, the preamble to that. And then we're going to dip into some gameplay features that he promised, and then we'll just let you know what we think about what the future holds. But spoilers, we still don't have a clue what that big white floating in the sky is all about.
They'll probably have to go to their website with a code.
Yeah, exactly. But some space turtles want him. So, that's pretty much the premise. So the whole show started off with, I thought, a rather nice cinematic of a character called Commander Zavala.
Yep.
Who's like the leader of the Vanguard. And part of the thing about Destiny is that essentially you're a massive zombie army. There's no two ways about it. You keep dying, you keep getting brought back to life. You are the zombie in the zombie horror film. You are an undead collection of carbon limping around the remnants of Earth trying to do things at the bidding of a giant cue ball that's floating in the sky.
It does make me wonder, now that that's been made a very canonical point in the story, how is it that humanity could possibly lose given enough time?
Yes.
Because they're immortal.
Quite.
And
yes.
The others
well,
aren't.
They're immortal while the Traveller's about. So the Traveller is the big white cue ball in the sky. He has bestowed everything with the power of light. Damn it, that's the rhyme I should have gone for in the intro. God damn it. He's imbued everything with light, which allows our ghosts, or the North as he's known, to kind of resurrect us. If we die, we get brought back. And in fact, that's how you began the very first moments in the very first Destiny, was being brought back from the dead. So this basically is Zavala's story. It starts off with kind of OG Zavala being woken up again for the very first time, and about how he gradually became the Guardian he is today. And there was lots of nice little touches, like he gradually got bits of his armour that you see him wear, so you can see him kind of picking them up as prize bits of loot. There's a couple of cameos from other Destiny characters. Lord Shaxx, it's amazing, who I swear is Brian Blessed underneath that helmet. That would be brilliant if it was. Who, if you've met that guy, and he's the guy who runs the Crucible in the tower, he's a big old titan, and he's only got one helmet with one horn on it. He should have two. And he starts off, a nice little thing, in the battle scene in that trailer when him and Zavala meet for the first time. He started off with two horns, but during the middle of that battle, he got one of the horns lopped off his helmet. Nice little touch, I thought.
Let's just say there's a fallen champion out there now who's walking a bit funny.
Yeah, or has an amazing codpiece. I know which one I want it to be. But it was all basically about the backstory of Zavala, how he kind of rose to greatness, how he was there putting the first bits of the tower down. So it's all about kind of building yourselves up to this new pinnacle, which then in a very brutal fashion gets torn down. So I mean, what did you kind of think about that kind of initial kind of, have we done good? Do you think it was a bit cheesy? Do you think it was hitting a good note? Do you think it was too reverential to its past?
No, I think it was perfectly on the nose, because the original game in its entirety at no point explained any origins.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see, like, one of the key characters that you've kind of, I mean, I hesitate to say the word, but grown up with over the past 2 years. It was cool to see how that guy got to where he was, and actually give some context for what the world was like.
Yeah, and see him be a bit of a noob along the way, just getting randomly shot and falling over, and he goes, all right, then, get you back up.
Yeah, he got the everyman. So he got the same journey that we all had, where you start off with nothing and eventually you get a cool shoulder pad.
Yeah, exactly. Although there was no running against a wall for reasons, there was no being befuddled by a shin-high rock when you're trying to climb up something.
True, it wasn't truly accurate in as much as you didn't see him walking around behind someone stalking them while hitting the crouch button over and over again, and there wasn't a lot of jumping on the spot.
I love me a tower mosh. Love it.
Exactly.
Love it. That kind of then segued into basically where Destiny 2 starts off, which I actually quite like the fact that it wasn't kind of drop you in, oh yeah, everything's already gone to shit, the tower's been destroyed. You know, I like the fact that you're there as it's all going down, and there's a certain bit about seeing kind of all the structures and all the kind of scenery you've really got to know, if you're like me and played far too much of the game, you know really well, kind of be torn down in front of you. I thought there was something quite awesome about that.
The bit that really caught me was when they go looking for the speaker, because they've heard the speaker's gone. And your character gets around the corner, and the entirety of the building that the speaker used to be standing in is now just broken off and gone.
Yeah, they just nicked the whole bloody lot. And on there is a note from Bill Nye saying, sorry, you can't afford my voiceover fees anymore. This seemed the most elegant way to square this in canonical plot.
I think the note would more likely read, sorry, I died.
Yeah, sorry.
I won't be reprising my role now.
You know, don't you think it was funny how for a character called the Speaker, I didn't do a lot of speaking? Don't think I was ever right for the job. Yours, Bill, is what it said. P.S. Do any of you have any f***ing idea what that massive white in the sky is?
Because I worship it.
I worship it. I still don't know what it is. But, you know, I really thought that was quite a cool moment, and that, you know, it's a nice way to make it feel familiar to kind of current players, but also, you know, not get so held up in the history of everything for people who come to the franchise brand new.
Yeah, and it was also really nice to see Ikora Ray show a little bit of passion towards something when she just flipping had a go at that ship that came past at the same time.
Mate, yes. She was not happy.
She was after a ruckers, mate.
Mate, she was right f***ing Barney is what she wanted. Yeah, so there was lots of that. Lots of Guardian Mentors actually doing something rather than just standing around a table, which is frankly what they spent the whole of the first game doing.
The key thing to point out about that opening mission, and I assume it's the opening mission, is that there's a lot going on there, a lot of dynamic cinematic stuff going on.
Yeah, why not?
It seems like a lot of scripted level changes as you're running around from place to place, but that's not a bad thing in what they're doing there, because a massive space battle is going to be difficult to obviously like open worldy it or something. So yeah, I really like the way that you can see all the ships coming in, and like they're what are those little pods come down at some point, and you can see them off in the distance coming towards you, and eventually they'll land and release Cabal soldiers. That all looks really good, and the only time I remember that happening before is the first mission in the Taken King.
Yes,
which to this day is still my favourite mission in the entirety of Destiny 1.
That is, yeah, no, you're right, actually. And it really feels like it's going down, basically. Yeah. It isn't just, oh, look, something's happening. Whoa.
And you're right, it would have been so easy for them to start after the fact and say, all right, we're in our new home base now, let's just go.
Yeah.
But they did the absolute right thing that probably required a lot more work, which is to go, right, one last mission in the tower.
Yeah.
Let's make it a good one.
And basically what's happening while the Cabal are attacking the tower, so the Cabal are the giant evil space turtles who have an evil empire and have brought some bloke called Gary along to boot to curb stomp you into the ground.
What is this Gary thing that they go? I assume it's some community
Have you not
thing.
seen the trailer? Have you not seen the story? The first cinematic trailer?
Yeah, but I didn't recall him calling him Gary.
No, he goes. There's this big moment where Zabala's going. And here's and they've brought their champion. His name is, and then it hard cuts to
Nathan Fillion's character.
Gary,
yeah.
is it Glenn? Is it something with a G?
Fair enough. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that part.
Do you see? It's awesome. But while all of that's going on, and kind of the three members of the Vanguard get broken up, which is blatantly going to be one of the missions that you go off and find each of them. There's going to be story arcs for each of them, I can guarantee it.
Yep.
I just hope they're not locked to classes. That's the only thing.
I shouldn't imagine so. I bet your responsibility throughout that entire campaign is to
get the band back together.
Conveniently, they're each on the 3 new planets, respectively. So I would assume that as you go to each planet, you have to recruit a Vanguard.
Yes, and then you gotta come back to Earth for a farewell tour where you're going to sing nothing but your greatest hits.
Yeah.
And then you're going to be able to retire, get the caravan you always wanted, and it's going to be good times.
Yeah. What I will say about this Gary character is I like how he's actually got a story as to why this is all going down. They quite explicitly said he believes that the Cabal should have been given the gift of the Traveller, and he's going to take it by force if necessary, which is way better than Destiny 1's, there's 4 species and they're all just angry at you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, then there was a bit, if you read the Grimoire cards, and I really hope that's something else they change.
Grimoire cards.
Yeah, I know, but I hope that's something else they change Destiny 2, that all the lore is actually accessible in-game, because some of the best lore you have to actually, for most people, go through a lot of faff to actually read. But the Fallen, the Traveller, so basically the Traveller bestows light, which is the thing that makes Guardians Guardians. It gives them their powers, it makes them superhuman, it makes their ghosts be able to exist, because ghosts, your little Nolan androids, they are all essentially offshoots of the Traveller, and they are powered by its light, quote unquote. So while all of this is going down, so the power-hungry Cabal want this light for themselves because they're space turtles, and space turtles, they love a bit of light, don't they? Love it. And as the first waves of the attack land on the tower, there's this big kind of, I don't know quite how to describe it, big kind of clawy grabby thing.
There was a part they showed in the middle of a montage sequence, and you might be getting to this, where they actually showed that bit as a shield generator that encompasses the entire planet Earth.
Yes.
Which I would imagine that's why you're not going straight back to Earth at the start of the game, is that you're probably going to have to go back there last, I would imagine, and assault that shield generator.
Yeah, so this thing latches onto the front of the tower, fillets all of its light away towards the Cabal, for want of a better term. And basically, this drains all the light from the Guardians. Everyone loses their powers. And presumably, your ghosts cease to exist. So that's another interesting. Because they are powered by the Traveller's light, if the Traveller has no more light anymore, your ghosts will cease to function.
Although for reasons I'm sure they'll make very clear, you do get your powers back immediately upon starting the game.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be like essentially bosses guarding caches of light, I think is what it's going to be.
Maybe.
That's how I would structure it anyway. So you gradually basically rediscover yourself, and you rediscover the band, and you get the band back together, and it all comes back to the massive farewell tour that I'm sure culminates in the raid. So that is the whole kind of précis to what's basically laying the groundwork in Destiny 2. And, I'm still quite pleased that they decided to really do a proper scorched earth on this, because I think it needed it.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, not just, plot-wise, they really needed to just get rid of all the mumbo-jumbo, but also the fact that it gives them an excuse to get rid of all the old items that grew a bit overpowered or a bit ridiculous over time, just absolutely just wipe all of that clean and just start fresh. And I think that's a really good thing.
I could not agree more.
Yes. So it's quite a good setup to the story. And, I think there's, one of the reasons perhaps why they had you initially in the tower still all powered up and good to go, to really kind of contrast with the fact that you've lost absolutely everything that makes you a Guardian. Not only your gear, your ghost, but also, you know, your powers as well. You're just a normal human for a long while, presumably.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite narratively kind of gives you a bit of agency about why you're going out there and doing this.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, they pretty much left it there. The last bit of kind of any real mention of the story arc is that basically you start founding a new city, which I'm sure will be, the size and scale of which will be tied to things you do in game, or things that perhaps happen in the kind of the meta game that kind of thousands and thousands of people are going to be playing. So that's where it's at the moment, and we know you go to planets and stuff.
So, getting on to the details of things, I guess, rather than the story. They got 3 new subclasses.
Yes, they do.
The Dawnblade, which is a warlock class, as far as I could tell, which is solar focused, and you get a big old sword that fires energy projectiles.
Everyone loves a big old sword that fires energy projectiles.
Yeah, the Titans now have the Sentinel, which is their second Void class, which has a shield.
Is Captain America.
And the Hunters have the Arc Strider, which is a staff-based thing.
It's basically a blade dancer with a stick instead of pointy things.
Yes, so immediately I think, why only the one energy type for each class when we already have that energy type? For me, it was either why, A, you could have produced a 4th energy type and made it truly different, or why are there not 3 new subclasses for everything? So you've got 2 Arc, 2 Void, 2... And maybe that's coming at a later date, but it's just a bit odd for me that there's now going to be this, like, one doubled up energy type for each class.
Well, I would imagine that it's going to be the early part of the game is going to be just you on that single new subclass. And I'd imagine you probably rediscover the old ones along the way, is what I would imagine could probably happen.
Yeah.
I'd imagine they're holding more back. If it's just there's only one subclass per class, that would be a bit weird and a bit limiting in the options that you have.
And I will say it was around this time in the program that I started thinking, I want to see what you've made changes to in terms of the deep gameplay, because right now you're showing me this surface level stuff that really just looks like a big expansion of Destiny 1. And I'm not seeing the reason for the 2 just yet.
Yeah, so I mean, I think they kind of hinted at some of that, didn't they? With like when they started delving into what the world map looks like. So one of my first thoughts was that, you know, the thing with, although Destiny, the original Destiny built it as a massive open world. Actually, it was fairly restrictive where you could go and what you could do, and there was actually a very limited set of combinations and permutations of what events would happen and where. So it sounds like with Destiny 2, they're really expanding on that. And there was kind of a mention of a lot of like mini things to do, in addition to like strikes and obviously raids and stuff like that. But there was
raid.
Yeah, raid at the moment. And they would start mentioning things like adventures, lost sectors. So adventures, what's the best way to describe it, Kev? Do you think like kind of little side missions with NPCs?
Yeah, it seems like it. Like someone will give you a treasure map and you can go out and find a random loot cache, which I hope is procedurally generated and random every time. Otherwise, it's going to get a bit boring. Then, as you say, there were those hidden sectors? Lost sectors. And that seems like it's a boss encounter that you've got to actually trail around the world looking for.
Yeah, well, I think they describe them as like dungeons. So it's like going dungeon diving. And I reckon those lost sectors are where you're going to see the in-between DLC trickling of content.
Probably, yeah.
It's going to be, we've just discovered this new area on the planet. You better go and investigate it, Guardian, see what's going on.
Yeah, I think the main thing to take away from this part of it was the adventures are a nice new addition. They're being added to the patrols that you would normally do, and obviously you've still got your strikes and your story missions on those planets. But what I do like is that you no longer have to flip up to orbit to repurpose what you want to do. So you could be patrolling it and say, oh, I'm going to go on an adventure thing now, and oh, no, I fancy going over here and starting this strike. Like, you don't have to go in and out of orbit every bloody time anymore, which is a massive quality of life thing. Again, not a good reason to put it under the name 2, but definitely good quality of life improvement.
Yeah, I mean, what I would have liked more information on, because the one thing that I thought they emphasised is that if you wanted to switch activities, you weren't going to have to go to orbit. So if, let's say, you're on Earth and you wanted to go to Io, that you could just look it straight up on, well, whatever your if you have a ghost or whatever the replacement for your ghost is, and you can go there. What I would really like to see is a seamless blending of the larger open world with strikes. And this is something that I actually think, one of the few things that I think the Division got right, where you would go from roaming about the open world, it would just, depending on your proximity to certain things, would segue you straight into a story mission. And I would like to see a bit more of that, a bit more of a seamless open world for you to run around in, rather than it being very set, scripted encounters. And that was one of the best things about the Vault of Glass, the very first raid, was that if you were just on patrol and going through that area, you would quite often, certainly in the first couple of months of Destiny, see a bunch of people in a pitched battle just trying to get through the damn door of the vault. And it's a shame that you don't get that with any of the other raids. And I hope they bring that kind of feel back to it a bit as well.
I get the impression that's what they're going for, although given, I mean, how many people could be in an area in Destiny? It was like 12 at any given
12.
time or something. So, I mean, you're not always going to be guaranteed that if they're keeping to those restrictions.
Hopefully they're not.
You're right, that would be great.
And, as to how these adventures and lost sectors are found, it's a little unclear at the moment. I'm sure there'll be kind of some core ones that you go on, but there may be ones that you just happen to stumble across. It depends how procedural or not they are. I think the lost sectors sound like crafted dungeons more than anything else, from the way they're saying. It's like, hey, it's this loot filled dungeon you go on with a boss, and it almost seems like a mini raid in some ways.
See, in my head, I'm thinking, like, one thing I really wanted out of Destiny 2 going into it was procedurally generated challenges in the vein of, and we're going to bring this game up a lot over the next several months with comparisons, because we did with the first one, but in the vein of Diablo's Nephilim rifts.
Yes.
Where you just say, right, I want to run through this rift, kill a load of stuff, grab a load of loot, fight a boss, get some rewards, go back, go through again, and just keep going and going and going. And that's your loot grind. And it's fun. And it's always procedurally generated. It's never really the same thing twice. And that's what I hope they will be doing with these lost sectors. I don't think it's going to happen that way. I think you're probably right. I bet they are very accurately designed. But I hope it's what I think.
Well, I mean, but there may be something other than lost sectors that they haven't said yet. I mean, one lives in hope, and I haven't been slightly burnt by Destiny 1, a game which I do love and I do get a lot of fun out of, but it had its shortcomings. And, again, I think everyone got so excited about what Destiny 1 could be that expectations got a bit unrealistic. But the one thing I would say is that Bungie are very much a kind of a bosom buddy with the rest of the Activision Blizzard corporation. And, we'll mention it later, but, as I moderately predicted, the game client's going to be run via Blizzard's Battle.net. We'll talk about that more in depth a bit later on, but I really hope they've learnt as much as they can from Blizzard, because it was back in before the Taken King, was it, where they kind of fessed up to having some peeps from Blizzard come around saying, oh yeah, they told us our loot actually works, so I'm doing it all wrong, duh.
Yeah, it was when the loot cave first showed up, and it was before the first DLC even came out. I forget what that one was called, but the Crota one. They had people from Blizzard coming in and saying, well, this is how our loot system works. Maybe you should retool it a bit to be more like ours. And for my liking, it didn't go far enough in that direction, but...
No, I agree.
It definitely improved.
To be fair, though, we kind of hold Diablo 3 up as this kind of paragon of of what kind of a loot-based grindy game should be, but it took them 6 years to get to that point, you know?
It did, but one could argue that once Reaper of Souls came out, which was, 2.5 years after the original game?
Came out in 2013 or something?
From that point onwards, Diablo 3 has stood out as just the best example of that kind of game, and it's gone from strength to strength to strength.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly difficult to get away with being antagonistic towards that game now. There are people out there that would still cry Diablo 2 to their graves, but the bottom line is Diablo 3 is a arguably perfect game in that genre. And Destiny, I mean, we're only 2.5 years in or whatever. Destiny 2's not released yet. I'm hesitant to say off of what we've seen today that they've corrected as much as they should.
I don't think we know enough yet.
Yeah.
But, I hope, as is the undercurrent of what they're going for, I hope they've been pretty ruthless in starting afresh in a couple of areas. I mean, the other thing is I hope they get right, and I think Destiny 1 suffered from this a bit, was it didn't quite know what game it wanted to be. It didn't know if it wanted to be an MMO, didn't know if it wanted to be a loot grindy game, it didn't know if it wanted to be the next Halo. And I think... They've got to stop trying to be all things and just work out what they want the predominant aspect of the game to be.
Yeah, well, my concern is that this game very much looks like they took what Destiny 1 already is and then said, okay, well, how can we make that? Because, I don't know about you, but when I finished this up and I sat there and I collected my thoughts for 10, 15 minutes, I was just like, what I really took away from today's demonstration is this isn't so much a massive amount of improvements, or no, improvements is the wrong word, a massive amount of new stuff coming to Destiny. This is Destiny 1 with new content and a hell of a lot of quality of life changes. Yeah. So it seems to me much more like a really heavy patch and expansion pack setup than a sequel. And that's why I keep going back to this, does it deserve the number 2 business just yet? Because everything about it, if you love Destiny, you're going to love this. You got a whole new 20, 30 hours of story probably to play with, and, new raid, new strikes, all that. You're going to get you a couple of 100 hours out of this game easy, even if you're just happy with it being a new Destiny expansion. But I want to see where the 2 comes in, and I hope that E3 or sometime in the future is when they're going to start announcing all of that extra stuff, because right now it's just, here's more Destiny, and we've made it nicer.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that gave me a slight bit of hope with that was looking at when they kind of dipped into the world map. And, in Destiny 1, it's like, here is a chunk of Russia. There's lots of areas in it, but actually you can only do things at these precise points. And, like we were saying earlier, if you wander into an area where there's a strike, you can't start the strike on site. You have to go back up to orbit, get that instance going, and go from there. But I hope it's a bit more open and freeform, and certainly what they were showing on the world map made me think a little more of like a World of Warcraft setup, where there is stuff going on all the time, and you just need to find it and work out how to get there and just get involved.
Yeah, that definitely sounds good.
And it'd be nice if it does happen, because the public events are one of the kind of things that I can remember with the first E3 showing of Destiny. That was the thing that really blew people away. That was their big tentpole, yeah. Yeah, and I don't ever think they really capitalised on that enough.
Well, they didn't have enough variety in their public events, and they were so few and far between. It was just, what did you get, like 2 an hour maybe?
Yeah.
And then that was if you were lucky, and if you were paying attention to that website that kept track of it.
And there was only kind of, basically, in a certain area, it was always going to be one of 3 things. Where, what I almost wanted them to do was a bit like with kind of the Dark Souls series of games, that have a world state that kind of sets the tempo for what's going on in the open sections of the game.
Yeah, so maybe if on Earth, let's say, the Fallen have been overwhelmed by the Vex in this weird little metagame going on in the background, just out of the player's controls, other than how many people. Maybe they. Here's a good thing. Every 24 hours, the server makes a count of how many Vex got killed versus how many Fallen got killed, and that determines what the public boss states are going to be, whether it's going to be Vex focused or Fallen focused. Something along those lines would be cool. You're right. That'd be a good world state thing.
But again, we don't. This is just conjecture. We don't know yet. I mean, I think the stream as a whole was a lot of whiz bang shiny things without necessarily a whole lot of clues as to exactly what the meat and potatoes of the game's going to be. So in addition to those kind of open worldy things, of course, there's story missions, there's strikes. They didn't say how many.
Crucible's now 4v4 in all modes.
Yes, absolutely. And, it sounded like they were kind of, with Nightfalls and certain strikes, they're going to go a kind of up the ante of it being a mini raid again, which they start to introduce with some of the things in Taken King, like multi-stage bosses, that kind of stuff. So that could be quite exciting. All kind of, at least the Vex, the Fallen, and the Cabal are making a return. There was no sign of the Hive, I noticed.
No sign in that lot, no, certainly not.
And all of the enemies look a little bit shinier. And of course, in addition to the co-op stuff, which is probably where I'll be playing most of my time, they are obviously bringing back some PvP stuff. Crucible's still a thing, so you're going to be able to get your fill of that should you want to. Although the one interesting change is that all of the game modes have gone from mixes of 2v2s, 3v3s, or 6v6 to everything being 4 versus 4, which I thought was a bit odd.
I have a problem with this.
Yes.
In as much as when you have a party of 6 people and you've just finished a raid.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, you don't want to go and do another raid straight away.
Absolutely.
Now, in my experience, and admittedly my raiding experience is few and far between, certainly compared to you, but when I would finish a raid with a party, it was a case of, well, what can we do now? Well, we can't do anything else in this game that has 6 people involved, but we can pop into the Crucible as a crew.
Yeah.
But you can't do that anymore because it's now 4v4 and everything.
Now, there's only, if they do want to keep like the fire team units together, I mean, one, I hope you can go on patrol as, a 4 or an 8-man team. What about if and they didn't mention the number of players in a raid.
They didn't, no. They just said there would be a new raid.
Now, we don't know if there's 4 players, or 6 players, or 8 players in the new raid.
Well, they did talk about raids when they were talking about the clan thing, and we'll get onto this now, I suppose.
Yeah.
There was it called?
Guided games.
Guided games.
Whoever came up with that needs to be shot as a title. That is actually, I'm gonna just put the brakes on for a moment here, Kev. There was a whole really bizarre bit in the middle where it was like it all turned into a bit of a support network. I'm not gonna lie. It's like, wow, I never really had any friends before I played Destiny, and now we meet up with these people and we have fun every day, and I feel like a complete human being. Now, don't get me wrong, video games are a fantastic way to get to meet people and have love. Hell, Kev, we wouldn't be speaking now if it wasn't for video games, and there are times where it does, being able to kind of completely detach and literally shoot your friends, it is very therapeutic, and it's a way to have a chat, it's a way to distract yourself, and that's very healthy, and it's great. But I thought they went a bit heavy on that.
They went down the avenue of we define our lives by Destiny, which I get that from a marketing standpoint. From a human standpoint, it's a little concerning.
And I've spent far too much time in Destiny than is good for me. But, even that had me going, okay. But one thing they did cotton on, and I think is a little bit of a beacon of hope for what they might change elsewhere in the game, is they're very cognizant of the fact that because stuff like raids and Trials of Osiris required you to have a bunch of people who you probably game with on a fairly regular basis, it effectively locked people out. Big chunks of the end game.
I mean, it locked me out with the exception of Extra Life.
Yeah.
Frankly, because I had zero interest in learning to play with new people. I just wanted to play with people I already know, and the only time 6 people I know are playing at the same time is in a 24-hour gaming charity marathon.
And you get the added bonus of driving me completely insane.
Absolutely, yeah. That's what the raids are for.
I can't believe you and Coleman maybe got me to the stage where I actually said in all earnestness, it's your own time you're wasting. I was like, oh God, we need to go to orbit, boys. I've got over to the dark side. But yeah, so kind of embracing that and kind of the whole Sherpa community that kind of jumped up around Destiny, where essentially experienced players band together to help people who are a bit less confident or a bit less invested in the game, basically just walk them through certain things, let them try it out. And, I think it's quite good that, so I can kind of see where they're going, is like, well, rather than, let's say you're playing solo and you want to do an activity that it's going to have to matchmake you into. So rather than pull like 4 or 5 random people from kind of whoever's got a reasonable ping compared to you, the fact that it kind of goes, well, these bunch of dudes, they usually play together. There's 3 of them online. Do you want to just jump in and, see how it goes? And that's the one aspect of the clan side of things that I quite liked. And it also breaks it down from being too elitist as well.
I'm in 2 minds on this.
Yeah.
On the one hand, I love the idea of Sherpering. Sherpering a word?
I think so.
The MOBAs have gotten really good at this. Well, they'll have people that literally just tag themselves as, I'm willing to help you learn the game. Mm-hmm. And you can find those people in the game client and join up with them and learn how to play. And in this case, run through raids or whatever with a bunch of people who know what they're doing. Here's the flip side of the argument. Have they gone far enough? Because I think this is only a half step. It's the right direction, but I still think matchmaking is needed.
Yes.
Because I, for one, don't want to join up with an entire... Let's say there are 5... What was their example? You're on your own. There's 5 people looking for an extra person. Now they can bring you in. Do I really want to be the one guy that hasn't played with these other 5 people ever before and they've all got their systems in place and... Now I come along and grease up the works with my idiocy and I'm paranoid the whole... Now, I will preface this... Well, not preface, but I will state at this point, I do suffer from pretty severe social anxiety at the best of times. So that's part of the reason I never get into multiplayer games with randoms. And this sounds to me like a right old stress factory.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to feel like anything that goes wrong, they're all going to have each other's backs and I'm the guy left out in the open. With full-blown matchmaking, I probably still wouldn't get involved, but at least I know there's 6 randoms.
Where I have to say, one of the things that how can I say, extreme members of the regular bunch of people who I play Destiny with, his comment was, oh, good. Well, that's good if we need an extra round for small. Oh, good. It looks like you can still kick them if they're not very good as well. I was like...
Yeah, you see, that's the kind of person that I don't want to risk getting into a group with.
Exactly. And, I will, unless someone's actually, like, being downright unpleasant and, actually being nasty to people, I'll never kick anybody. I will always try and, get them through... Or at least have a bloody good try until everyone absolutely loses the will to live, and we all just go our different ways anyway.
Until we get to the end of the machine raid, and then you're like, no, we can't do it.
Exactly. So, it's very dependent on the kind of how the community interacts with new people.
It absolutely is. I just think that this is one of those things that's been called for since the Vault of Glass came out, is please just give us matchmaking, give us the option.
Yeah.
We understand that players can be a toxic community, but 5 minutes ago, you just literally showed us an entire video about how your community's so good and they all love each other. Why on earth are you not allowing us to matchmake into a raid?
Yeah, exactly.
This is the worst marketing they could have done, actually. This is only just occurring to me now, but they literally did go for a video like, we have the best community, the best players, they all love each other, we all get down together, it's cool.
But you can't find anyone to play with.
We also understand no one wants matchmaking because we're such toxic community out there.
Exactly. But yeah, so I mean, that we'll see. But the one kind of big elephant in the room that didn't really get much of a mention with regards to matchmaking, and certainly why I don't have functioning reactions anymore. I'm in my mid 30s. All that went to shit a long time ago. But one of the big problems that in PvP, not PvE play, is lag spikes and differences in connection quality. Because at the moment, Destiny works on a peer-to-peer networking system, which for most things is probably fine. But all it takes is one bad connection in the game and them getting randomly selected as host to make the whole thing absolutely terrible for everybody. Like shots not registering, players teleporting all over the place. And I think they need to have a little think about what they do of, do they still stick with peer-to-peer? Do they go dedicated servers? I mean, thankfully, them buddying up with Blizzard, they've got a lot of experience in getting this stuff done very right.
So I was reading the Blizzard news post, because that's the one thing that has gone up on Blizzard's side of things, and it was stating that Bungie are running the servers, the game servers, from inside Bungie.
Yeah.
Blizzard are only affecting the Battle.net end of things. So if there are dedicated servers to be had, it's going to be entirely run by Bungie.
Mm.
And I'm not sure what their situation is with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we will see. But I suppose that was the other big thing as well, that I think there's been a lot of furore about Destiny 2 coming to the PC, and it was a bit of a no-brainer that Destiny 2 is going to be deployed via Battle.net, which is kind of what we were saying earlier. Quite what the limit of that integration's going to be, I don't know. I mean, it sounds... My one concern with how they're describing it on that Blizzard news post is it's like, yeah, we're kind of letting them put their stall up in the shop front, but, everything's on them if it goes wrong.
Yeah, we're literally just charging them rent.
Yeah, exactly. This is what it comes down to. And, yeah, will it leverage Battle.net friends list? It probably will.
It will. On the Battle.net end of things, Destiny might have its own internal game-specific friends stuff going on.
Yeah.
Here's the problem with the Battle.net friends list, which you might have just about been getting to, is that it's all region-specific. So you can't have EU friends and American friends.
Yeah.
Or whatever the third region is that I forget off the top of my head.
Asia.
Yes. So you can't have multiple friends all over the world unless you flip to a different server. I'm not sure how that's going to work with this.
Well, I mean, if they're letting Bungie continue to run their own servers, essentially, then that might be a bit of a moot point.
Yes. Well, as I say, if the friend stuff is working through PSN and Bungie, not PSN, sorry, through Bungie's in-game stuff, then we're going to be all right. But it's still a little bit irritating because you are going to have that thing where in Battle.net it shows what game people are playing and what they're doing in that game at any given time. And you won't be able to see we won't be able to see American friends playing on it. On the PC, at least.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Honestly, it's a weird kind of hybrid stuff where if your the new matchmaking in kind of instances, if you're playing solo for a while, whether or not that's just limited to your region, which it pretty much is anyway, with a lot of the connection-based matching they do.
Yeah.
Whether or not that's how it's going. We don't know. It's a long way of saying we haven't got a bloody clue.
What I will say is that Battle.net, which isn't called Battle.net anymore, by the way. I don't know why they said it's called the Blizzard app.
Yeah.
I don't know why they bothered calling it Battle.net in this, because obviously people don't understand that it's changed the name or it's still in transition. Be that as it may, it's a very good client, as, extra clients that aren't Steam go.
Yeah.
And one thing I love about Blizzard is, on the PC at least, is their control over the community in terms of cheating and hacking.
Yes, absolutely.
Is incredible. And Battle.net has a lot to do with that. Now, if Bungie are in charge solely of the Bungie stuff, then they may not be able to leverage it to the extent that I would hope, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the one thing I would say about, obviously it's, the cost of digitally rolling it out on the PC is a lot less, going with their own essentially homebrew solution, which is the Blizzard app. A lot of people going, oh, why don't they release it on Steam? I mean, from one of the things that's very important to Bungie, and I think is evidenced by the fact that this could, the way that it was they were trying to self-style an Apple keynote, basically, with the format of it today. The kind of the user-facing experience is, and every aspect of it is very important to them. And, while Steam is great for getting a whole shed load of games out there and accessible, from a UX point of view, it's one of the worst things ever.
No, absolutely. One thing I love about Battle.net is you open that client and you have a choice of 6 games in front of you. And it'll be 7 when Destiny's on there. So Destiny will never be pushed to the next page, as it were.
Yeah.
It'll always be front and center, and Steam won't be able to guarantee that in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. And, I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, that's not to say that, they won't look at other distribution platforms in the future. Hell, kind of Call of Duty World War II is you're going to be able to buy that on Steam, but I think it makes a lot of sense for kind of them to, and probably reduces the risk considerably for them as well to kind of deploy it in that way. But the one thing, obviously, that a lot of people because apparently they've got PCs running the Destiny 2 on the event, which obviously we're not at, but they are allowing people to pull live actual unadulterated footage straight from either a PS4 or a PC at the event, is what the difference in the various versions are going to be. I think if you want to get all the footage they showed today, as far as I could work out, was being shown on a PS4 Pro.
I think that's probably correct. My concern is that it was running at 30 frames a second, and the rumour going around up until now is that every platform's going to run at 60.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
And if that's a Pro, which you'd imagine if they're putting their best foot forward right now, it will be, then it looks like if you want your 60 FPS like I would, then PC is the only way to go.
Yeah. Visually, it looked a little nicer, I have to say. I mean, I think a lot of the stuff that's been done was the lighting engine, to me, looked a lot better. Mm-hmm. Things just seem to pop a lot more. Things seem to feel more solid. But I think you're right. I mean, to get a solid 60, I mean, Bungie strike me as the kind of company they would rather go for a rock-solid 30 than a unsure 60 on a platform.
They always have done.
Yeah.
They always have done, even back in the days of Halo.
And I think they will continue to do that. I mean, the rumours are, which are relatively unconfirmed at the moment, is that the PC version will feature the following: 4K resolution, which there was no real mention of the PS4 supporting. Unless it's upscaling, of course. Unless it's upscaling like a 2K image to a 4K, which it may well do. An uncapped frame rate on the PC. Text chat, adjustable field of view, detailed PC settings screens. Surprise, surprise. There's a lot of buttons that Tim can talk about. And 21:9 monitor support. But one of the ways they were really... something I'm not sure if it's a good idea or a bad idea yet. They were speaking about the PC version, that it's going to be its own little walled garden and in some ways very different to the console version.
So a thing I had read is that they were coming up with a system where PlayStation 4 and PC players won't be able to play together, but you will be able to carry your character between the two.
Oh, okay.
So you could, for example, get a new weapon on the PC and then turn off your PC, go to your PlayStation 4, pick it up, and then join in with your PlayStation friends with the same stuff.
Okay.
That's a rumour I read. There's absolutely no foundation for truth on this at the moment. But, this is also the same rumour mill that spat out that everything was going to run at 60. So,
yeah.
Who knows? It could just be someone being hopeful. That sounds cool to me, but I like the idea of that far more than this walled garden approach, because the walled garden can very quickly become, as we saw with Diablo for so many years through Blizzard, can very quickly become very different to everything outside of it.
Yeah, and I mean, that was my only pause for concern when they were talking about the PC version, was that a couple of times they very much made it sound like the PC was going to be its own separate branch of the game in many ways, which, would perhaps allow them to realise the potential of the PC in this respect, but also could be a real pain in the bum from down the road. Of course, there's going to be things like, why I thought I'd shout this out slightly separately is that, of course, there's going to be keyboard and mouse support. But we were talking about this the other day, Kev, that one of the things that makes Destiny so good to play, despite its shortcomings on a console, is they've really, really finely tuned like the twin stick feel. The gunplay on when using a controller in Destiny is fantastic.
No, their auto aim is second to none, and that's what makes the controller so good with Destiny, is because you only have to do a little bit of the work to get to where you're aiming, and then the engine takes over and gets you that headshot. And they've done it in such a way that it never really feels obvious. Like they keep it feeling skillful, to the person who's not paying too much attention, but it always has, and it has that really satisfying pop on the headshot or whatever. I don't think any game feels as good as that. And when you get down to the nuts and bolts of it, a console shooter is really made on how good that auto-aim is implemented, because every console game has auto-aim implemented. Yeah. Whether, it's one of those things that you just got to accept. And with a mouse and keyboard, I think, the better mouse and keyboard players out there are going to get on with it just fine. But it won't have auto-aim enabled. So I think that there's actually going to be a bit of a loss of product quality if you play mouse and keyboard, because you're not going to have that perfect feeling of headshots every now and again, or consistently.
And, using a controller as well, it's a lot easier for the devs to kind of really kind of bake in the inherent feelings of inertia player movement has.
Yes, absolutely.
Whereas that's one of the things I'm finding weird coming back to the gaming on the PC after, a decade of not doing so. And I find I used to be absolutely fine with mouse look and stuff like that. Now I've yet to rewire my brain to get its head around it, because I'm quite used to having that. Someone called it slow and plodding, and that's fair enough. But the kind of not being able to turn on the spot instantly in a slightly unrealistic fashion, to be fair.
Yeah.
But and I think I've become quite accustomed to the large amount of input filtering that goes on whenever you use a controller, which obviously with mouse, when you're using the mouse, that is not filtered in any way. It's like what you do on your mouse pad gets directly translated to what's going on screen by and large.
One to one, yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like going from a car with like ABS and power steering back to like a car from the 70s where you've got to do everything manually, and you have more control over it, but it's way harder.
Yeah, exactly. But, I think, again, we need to know more. I mean, one of the things, I hope what you're saying is right, that there's going to be I think, sadly, Xbox is going to be left out in the cold a little bit.
Well, the rumour I heard about this almost cross-play thing is that Microsoft weren't willing to settle for whatever deal got made to them.
Yeah.
But Sony are obviously partners, so they're up for it.
And, all of this was very kind of mainly PlayStation, slightly less so PC focused. No real mention of Xbox, be it One or Scorpio or whatever. And, kind of the other big elephant in the room is that there was no mention of what the experience would be like on a non-half step gen, be it the Pro or the Scorpio. If you don't have one of those, what it's going to be like on a vanilla PS4 and Xbox One. I've got a sneaking feeling it's not going to be great.
And they also didn't mention anything about timed exclusives, which are going to happen. It's going to happen that Sony is going to get a hell of a lot of timed exclusives.
Well, it would, yeah. I mean, they are. I mean, Sony were bankrolling, heavily bankrolling the whole thing today. They pretty much, it was like, here's PlayStation. They've been so great to us. We love PlayStation. They give us hugs. And they let us be the big spoon sometimes, is basically what it was. So I think that is probably going to continue. And on that very early poster leak that happened back in March, there was the PlayStation exclusive features little logo on the posters that went out to GameStops and stuff.
Just before we finish up, I made a short list of things off the top of my head,
right,
straight afterwards, that I would have liked to have heard to justify the number 2.
Right. Okay.
And I want to know where you stand on these things.
Hit me with it, Kev.
So, things I would have liked to hear.
Right.
Number 1.
Right.
We're overhauling the skill tree system, so subclasses could be more build oriented. For example, the Dawnplay could spec to damage over time, or it could be a support role. There's some of that to a certain extent in current Destiny, but I would like a massive overhaul of the skill system.
I agree. And I would like to see it, and it sounds like a bloody stuck record, but I would like to see it become a bit more Diablo, where there are certain items or certain ways in which you can spec that allow you to use your existing set of skills in new and interesting ways.
Absolutely. I don't want to be in a situation like I have been throughout all of Destiny, where there are 2 hunters with exactly the same build playing exactly the same way, and then a 3rd and 4th hunter turn up and they're exactly the same as well.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's a problem Destiny had certainly in PvP play, less so with PvE. Actually, maybe it's the case. Just use slightly different builds for PvE and PvP. That there's kind of a critical path of perks to choose.
Yeah,
and that's what you go with. Where versus a kind of well, you've just found this cool new item that you could synergize with this other item, and then if you equip the perks that cover both, you could get something that's more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah,
would be cool. Right, hit me with your next knowledge stink bomb, Kevin.
This one's a no-brainer. I've already mentioned it. We agree. I want to see procedurally generated challenges involved somewhere. Something that always feels fresh, no matter how much I'm playing Destiny.
I concur.
Yep. I want to see an overhaul of the loot system again.
Yes, please.
I imagine that's actually happening, if I'm honest. They just haven't gone into it.
Aside from saying there's a new weapon slot, the power weapon,
yeah,
it sounds like they're being pretty heavy-handed with, forcing you to choose between, powerful archetypes of weapons that previously sat in different slots so you could have all of them equipped. Aside from that, they didn't really mention loot, although the character screen they briefly showed still showed a bunch of purple and exotic stuff. So kind of the bare bones of it are there, but how much they embrace like the random perks that you get in Diablo and the kind of the wider ranges of stat rolls, I don't know.
I think the drop system as it is fine. I want to see more interesting variations on the weapons, if you like.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot more randomized stats. Speaking of weapons
and
armor,
Kev.
I would really love to see some sort of modular weapons and armor system, maybe with a crafting system brought in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was half expecting to talk about crafting today, to be honest, because very much if everything's been blown up and you're having to start fresh, you're probably going to have to scavenge or kind of MacGyver your way up the up the ladder of being a badass. And I'm hoping there's going to be greater custom. I mean, compared to how vanilla Destiny was, where you could only get max level by wearing one particular set of armor, so everyone wore that set of armor. I hope there's more ways you can kind of really customize your character, and kind of whether or not it's like, you can swap out different shoulders piece by piece, different on the left, different on the right, and you make it truly modular so that, you really can look unique. I think would be good.
I think back to, for some reason, this is the game that points out in my head when I think about this, is Star Wars Galaxies, where in order to make and craft certain items, you had to go through a bunch of different missions and fight bosses, and each of them had a chance of dropping a crafting component towards that. So you could go out and do 3 strike bosses, and each of them have a chance to drop one of the 3 components you need. And then once you've got those 3 components, you can go back and you can make a new exotic weapon.
Yeah.
That sounds cool to me. But right now, obviously, it's just a case where they might drop an exotic, and that exotic may or may not be something that is useful.
Yeah.
I want to see some sort. This is another thing, Dan.
Yes, Kev.
I want a reason to jump into Destiny with my friends where I don't necessarily just have to fight everything all the time.
Right.
Now, if they're going down the MMO route, there are a few easy go-tos, and we've been playing a lot of Elite lately, so my immediate go-to was mining and trading.
Yeah.
I think mining and trading could go well. And things like, even WoW's got fishing, which is brilliant. I want something to do passively in the game that doesn't involve combat, but still brings me into the world and makes me feel like I'm a part of the experience.
You're not having Euro Truck Simulator in Destiny, Kev, I'm sorry.
Why not?
No,
right? I could drive
I know they say you go to Europe, but no Euro Truck Simulator, Kevin.
I could deliver the hell out of some weapon parts.
No. Bag, Kevin.
Dan?
What?
When are we getting space dogfighting in Destiny?
I want space dogfighting.
How is that not a thing that they came out front and foremost and just said, now you can fight in spaceships? The whole crowd would have leapt through the ceiling.
I know. That was something at least I was expecting a little tease on. I don't know.
This game's got 2 on it.
At least slip me the tip. You know what I mean?
I know. This game's got a 2 on it. How have they not announced that and this is probably my favourite idea I've had so far, Destruction Derby featuring sparrows.
Yes, that, please, now.
Just an arena of massive destruction derbying with sparrows. That could be a great PvP thing. Anyway, I had some other things. Mainly, the 4-player fire team is the last major one that I wanted to get off my chest. But I from the sounds of things, because one thing I was hoping from Destiny 2 is that they would announce a 4th class, superclass rather than subclass, and that didn't happen. They very much had that title sequence of Titan, Warlock, Hunter, and I was hoping for something else to pop up at the end. But no, it was just those 3.
Fisherman, truck driver.
I assume they're still using we've got 3 classes, so we have 3 people in the team excuse.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which is annoying. How many times, Dan, did we have a full fire team and then one more person jumped on and said, "Can I join you guys?" And we were like, "Nah, I guess we could go 2 and 2."
Yeah.
But no one really wants to do that. It's just seen every game in the world that has grouping has grouping for 4 people.
Yes.
It drives me mad. Now, it may be that this isn't the case and they have actually got 4-player fire teams because, as you say, they didn't say how many people are going to be in a raid party. Maybe things are changing up.
Yeah, who knows?
I certainly hope so.
I would like to see your other list of criteria that you need to fulfil in order to put 2 after something, to be fair.
Well, I've gone through...
Like Die Hard 2.
I've gone through that stuff there. Die Hard 2 was...
Terminator 2.
Terminator 2... Well, Terminator 2 was just a much better movie.
Yeah, yeah, there's that. But, do you have a standard list of criteria you got to fulfill to put the 2 after it?
No, it changes with everything. It's just got to feel different enough to the first. And right now, that isn't the case with what we've seen of Destiny 2. I mean, it's different in as much as there's a lot of new locations, but when they said gameplay reveal, I was like, oh man, we're going to see how this game has changed it up. And then it's just like, no, we've just given you a whole lot of new maps to play on, essentially, and then everything else is basically the same.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but it's not, I mean, that's, and call me out if I'm bullshitting here, but that's just the Taken King.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what the Taken King was a hell of a lot of new content, but just in a different place. It was still the same game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a slightly weird event. I mean, I think they were heavily checked. They were really checking themselves on what they were happy to say or not. And, let's see what the coming weeks and months build. I mean, it looks like, at the very least, if you like Destiny, you're really going to like Destiny 2. Are there enough nitty-gritty details out at the moment? No, we're probably not going to know much more until the beta hits in the summer. And, man, I can't believe bloody E3's only 3 weeks away. When did that come?
I heard someone say that on a podcast yesterday, and it blew my mind because I hadn't even considered it.
But it also means that the beta for Destiny's not far out as well. I think that's June 16th.
Didn't he say summertime?
Summertime. June is summer, last time I checked.
I suppose that's true.
It's like Spring 2, but a more
Is this a Sony exclusive beta again, do we know?
I think Sony peeps are getting access a couple of days early.
Right, okay.
I would imagine. So, yeah. Well, I think that's about enough Destiny for the day, I think. And poor old Coleman, sorry, Coleman. We went on far longer than I anticipated.
We had some stuff to talk about, as it turns out.
But there we go. So I hope, listeners, you enjoyed us actually just talking about Destiny for a bit. I enjoy talking about it. I don't often get to talk about it as much as I would like. So, yeah.
And you don't often get to hear me speak positively about it. So
no, it's true, actually.
That was interesting.
Yeah. So I'm sure normality will be restored.
We'll wait until DLC day, eh?
We're going to get out of here just for Coleman's sanity more than anything else. And probably go hoon about in Elite Dangerous for a bit. So, yeah. Kev, thanks, mate.
No props.
And if there's any more juicy Destiny 2 news, perhaps we'll do it again sometime. So, until then, anyway, and until next week when normal service will be resumed, I have been Dan.
I've been Kev.
Yeah, you have. And we're going to get out of here. So, until next time, or until a big sound effect, toodle bye.
So, moving on to what we done played. And I'm going to do this in the order it's on the agenda. Normally, I just, go the hell I like and do all things all over the place. But there's a reason why I want to particularly do it in this order. And one of the things is I have to say, Diarmuid, that I was really hoping you were going to be my co-op buddy for this.
I wanted to be.
Why you didn't, because I fully understand the need. Anyone that hasn't owned a PSVR yet, because Diarmuid and I are both fans and both own them. The one thing I have learnt so far about PSVR games is it is much better to have the digital version than the physical copy, because otherwise if you switch games with the headset on, getting up and swapping discs is a real pain in the arse.
And you could end up breaking stuff.
Yes, so I can fully understand you waiting for this, because if anyone doesn't know, Farpoint came out this week. And part of the appeal with Farpoint is it's a first-person shooter type game, but it also comes with the brand new PSVR aim controller as well.
Yeah.
I say PSVR aim controller. I'm assuming you can use the aim controller when not using PSVR. I haven't really seen people talking about that, but
well, that's the thing. The aim controller is its own controller, so it's not like it's like you. For instance, for Farpoint, you can't use the Move, so it isn't just something that you plug the Move into and move it around. It's its own thing. And they've announced 5 games so far that are going to be released that will support it. Whether you can use it with anything else, I don't know. It's going to be one of those things where we'd have to test it and try it out.
To be fair, I've been using it to navigate my way around the menus, and it does all have all the standard buttons and the 2 thumbsticks. So there's no reason why you couldn't use it. It just might not be entirely suitable if you didn't. But yeah, the dilemma that we kind of alluded to there is that you want to get the digital game, but at the moment there's no way to get like a kind of value proposition deal for the digital game and the aim controller, which is a bit weird. So I had to go physical even though I didn't want to.
Exactly. At the moment, they only have the aim controller available in the UK at least as part of a bundle.
Yeah.
In America, they do have the individual aim controller that you can buy. But like right now, on the EU store, you can buy Farpoint digitally, but the only way you can get the aim controller is part of a bundle. So I was kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So I've been messaging or tweeting the PlayStation UK account, trying to find out what's going on. I've posted on the blog, and I'm hoping that they eventually release this kind of on its own. Yeah. But we'll have to wait. For me, I'm going to have to wait and see. Otherwise, I'm going to have to try and pick it up on like eBay or something.
Yeah. But you think that would make sense that they would do that, basically. And just before we dive into Farpoint fully, I will sort of cover the controller quickly for a minute as well. I have to say, it's a really nice piece of kit. I saw kind of an early version at EGX last year, and I got to kind of hold it and kind of have a look at it without actually playing Farpoint, basically. But
okay.
I had a look at the piece of kit, and I can't be 100% certain because it was a while back and I had to fiddle with it, but it does seem like the end result is a slightly more refined piece of kit as well. And it wasn't bad to start with, but it certainly seems a little bit nicer now as well. The only thing I found really weird, and stay with me on this one, this may just be me, but it didn't come with a USB charging cable. Fine, because most people are going to have one that works with their pads anyway, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's just me, and I don't know if this isn't the one that originally came with my PlayStation. I suspect it's not. But the charging cable I have for my PS4 pads has a slight curve to it so that it fits nicely into the actual pad.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that's the case with all of them or just happens to be the case with the one that I predominantly use for my PS4.
Let me guess, it doesn't fit into the aim controller.
Doesn't fit into the aim controller. So to start with, to hook it up to my PS4, I had to unplug the cable that I had plugged into my Xbox One, and there was the official Xbox One USB controller to plug it into my PS4, and I just found that really bizarre.
So Sony's latest peripheral doesn't work with their USB cable, but it does work with the Xbox One USB cable.
I have to say, I'm not sure if it's the cable I've got, because it doesn't really have any markings on it. I don't know if it's an official PS4 cable, or it's just, as I said, it just happens to be the one I use. But the curve to it suits the PS4 perfectly, works with the PS4 properly, and I can't see why it would be for anything else kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't fit in anything else. So I really... Yeah, I don't understand that one at all. That was a bit of a loss. Moving swiftly on from there. Yeah, the actual piece of kit, for anyone that hasn't seen it, you've got... It's kind of hard to describe. It's almost like it's got a move controller stuck in the front of it, and you've got the little squidgy ball. I really wish you made a honk honk sound when you actually squidge the thing. But anyway,
or a squeak, yeah.
But yeah, it's got the kind of move ball thing on, ball of light thing on the end of it so that the camera can pick it up and stuff like that. And then it's got a kind of plastic tube behind that goes then down into the trigger and then kind of loops back round as if it was a kind of, how to describe that? I don't know. But anyway.
Like an underbarrel shotgun or something.
Yeah.
It kind of goes up the top as well.
Yeah, and then you've got like the kind of front to it. And on the backside, you've got one joystick, and on the front kind of angled down, you've got the other joystick nearer the front, basically. So you've got both analog sticks to kind of steer with, and I'll come on to Farpoint in a minute. I'll leave that, but I was going to go into some of that. But then you've got you've got the main trigger that you're obviously shooting with most often right at the back of the handle, but then you've also got the two other sort of triggers near the front. Well, one's more of a trigger and one's more of a kind of button, but they're the L1s and L2s. And then either side of the trigger, you've got the R1 button. So I'm assuming that, even though it doesn't state it anywhere, that the trigger is actually R2. And then on the very
I would guess so.
back of the unit, surrounding the one analog stick, you've got the four kind of buttons that you can press as well, basically. And then there's a D-pad and your share and option buttons kind of alongside the other.
Near the front of the controller, yeah.
So it's kind of a weird setup, but it does work rather well. Now, as you said, there's 5 other games that they've announced that are releasing with it. I did try and use it with the Brookhaven experiment, which is one I was given a review code for before, and I was keen to see how that worked, especially as it did something different with any game that I've seen that's had guns so far. It had an angled kind of back piece to it anyway. But yeah, like as I said, I haven't used it with too much else yet. Dick Wild has just come out, and I'm probably going to hopefully. I think I'm getting a review code for that, so I'll probably be able to talk about that next week. And yeah, I'm keen to see how it works with other stuff. But so far, obviously, it's been primarily designed to work with Farpoint, and I can see this, obviously working well with other first-person shooters going forward. But moving into Farpoint, right now, have you seen other people talking about this so far, Diarmuid?
Yes, yeah. I've read a few reviews. I listened to a few podcasts that have already mentioned it, and the main takeaway from those has been that it is a passable kind of corridor shooter that doesn't really do anything new, but what it does competently and pretty well.
And the aim controller kind of really sells it, basically. Sort of
yeah, exactly. It's the aim controller that you need to play it with.
Now, weirdly, I don't have a lot, and this could be me, people know me by now, but hey, I didn't have the same problems as everyone else. I certainly had problems which made it slightly less than perfect, but I just couldn't see. So the two recurring criticisms I saw is it's a very kind of narrow corridor type shooter, and I'm like, well, what the hell do you want? Like every bloody first person shooter is like that. It does actually open out into kind of open areas at times. But I don't mind, especially in this type of game, I don't mind a kind of linear being directed going forward type thing. I don't see the problem with that.
I would have to agree with you there, because when I read that criticism, I was like, but I think they actually designed it that way on purpose.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing is you're in VR, and you, unlike most other, it's not a shooting gallery, it's one where you're actually able to move.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is you're going to be moving and aiming and looking around kind of all at the same time.
Right, now that's where it gets a bit weird, because the default controls, don't allow you to look left and right. The default controls have you moving forward and backwards. I nearly went into the Simpsons quote there, up and down, but not forward and back into time. Anyway, but Homer controlling a balloon. Anyway, but yeah, basically, it doesn't allow you to look left and right. It just allows you to sidestep by using, and I can't remember which way around it is. I think the the front joystick you use to move and the back joystick's disabled.
Yeah.
But then I found that really weird. I found that really disconcerting. I am so not used to that at all.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I was listening to the Giant Bombcast, and they were talking about that specifically. The fact that the default one you don't look with the analog stick.
Yeah.
The look is entirely in the headset. And they had Will Smith from Tested on the podcast this week, and he said that that's the cheat way of making sure that you don't get motion sickness. If you attach all kind of looking and directional stuff to the headset, then the chances of getting motion sick are practically brought down to zero.
And I think that is partly to the game's detriment, because I do think it hampers like some of the directions you can be attacked from and other bits like that that make it a bit weird. But look, I found it weird at first and disconcerting when I was just not able to look left and right. I'm used to being able to do that in a game. Now, they have various comfort settings, and I can't really tell you, other than I don't like the base thing where you can't look left and right, I can't tell you anyone's in the middle because I cranked it all the way up to the top and never looked back, basically. It does say that some people have to say that you have to find your VR legs, and I kind of understand that. And I'm well versed in VR, and I kind of get used to it. But in most games, and I said this when we were playing Rigs a lot as well, that I don't quite understand why you can charge around in a big mech and be fine, but yet you think I can't do that when just walking around. But look, I as I said, I cranked it up to full smooth movement. You can do various different degrees on the path up to that, but I cranked it right up to smooth movement, and I put the movement speed up, and I've been absolutely fine. Like, I haven't found a problem with it at all.
But then again, you've been playing VR games myself since launch, so we're a bit more used to it. But if Sony really do want this to be similar to what you were talking about with ARMS, where it kind of pushes the console, if they want Farpoint to be that thing for VR, that thing that that title that people might jump onto because this is the kind of VR title that they might have been waiting for, then I can see why they would put in so many different
But right, that's the wrong approach with this, though, because you're not going to sell someone this as their first VR game because it's too much of another barrier to entry. If you haven't picked up VR, you're not going to pay another £75 to pick up the gun and the game to go with the headset straight away. So as far as I'm concerned, you're selling this to people that have already got VR and possibly giving people another reason to be interested in PSVR, but I don't think you're going to sell this to them as their first game, basically. So I think that's slightly the wrong approach.
Potentially, yeah.
But anyway, right. Also coming back to the game itself, I saw a lot. The other reoccurring thing that people kind of picked up on was that, you don't shoot anything for the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, Jesus, I hope you've never played a Metal Gear Solid game, because, you know what I mean? Like, ooh, there's quite long cutscenes in that where you don't shoot anything for a very long period of time. You know what I mean? Like, and okay, you might get stuck into the gameplay a little bit more, but like, I can't understand that. I thought there was a really good kind of intro to the story, and I found it quite interesting. I actually preferred it if they'd spent a bit longer setting up some of the characters, and there's a bit on a space station, and that space station gets sucked into the anomaly that it's studying, basically. And I wish they'd spent a little bit more time. Basically, the setup is that you're a ship's pilot that's coming to pick up two doctors, Dr. Moon and Dr. Tyson, from this space station and take them back to Earth. And I'd rather that they actually kind of put you on the space station for a bit and kind of delved into that a little bit more. I think it would have given you a bit more ownership about what was going on and type of stuff in that degree. But that aside, I haven't had a problem with that. I quite like, and it's difficult to know because I'm only halfway through the game, and it's difficult to know if the payoff is quite worth it. But for now, at least, I'm quite intrigued by the mysteries of what they set up. I had a minor spoiler myself on types of enemies from looking at something that the developer said, which I was a bit disappointed about. But suffice to say that, like, you kind of battling various degrees of space spiders to start with. but they're not quite the only enemy types that you come across, basically, without spoiling anything else.
Okay.
I've basically, if anyone's played the game, I've basically just got past the first couple of sections after picking up the kind of equivalent of the sniper rifle type thing. And the first few sections of the game, you are literally just swapping through having a shotgun and an assault rifle. And you're basically, switching between the two by... you can do it by a button press, but the cooler way to do it is to flick the gun up to your shoulder and like kind of reach behind your back. And then that switches weapons, which is quite cool. And the various weapons have got like generally a kind of alt fire to them. Like the shotgun's got a grenade launcher, and the assault rifle's got like a rocket launcher type thing. So you've got like the big weapons for dealing with like the bigger people.
Mm-hmm.
And the sniper rifle doesn't have that, but it's just, it tells you when it's locked onto a target and you can shoot things more easily. And I have to say, I really like the sniper rifle. They're all kind of future tech based, a bit like the kind of Mass Effect type weapons. Like they overheat, but they don't really have ammo apart from the actual rockets and grenades that does have ammo, which seems a bit pointless because they scatter the ammo around everywhere whenever you need it, so they may have just not bothered. But anyway, like in terms of that, like I was quite enjoying it, and I think I'm enjoying it more because I only in retrospect realised that the initial setup that I did last night didn't go perfectly, and I didn't realise this until I started playing it again today, where it wasn't quite perfectly in line, I don't think. Because you do this weird thing where you aim the controller at different sections of a circle in 360 degrees, and because I wasn't expecting to do that and didn't know and wasn't looking, like I bumped the controller on my couch as I was doing it, so it didn't quite do that perfectly, I think. So, yeah, that came off a bit weirdly, basically.
So, do you play this standing up then?
Well, no, that's the thing. Like, I've heard that it is actually better to play standing up, but I can't do that because my camera is below my TV rather than above it. And I tried to do that, and it was like, no, your head is above the thing, and I've gone all wonky now. And,
you're a giant. You can't play this game.
So it didn't like that at all. So I've just been playing it sitting down. But I've been, as I said, like I in retrospect, I didn't set it up properly because of that. But playing it tonight, it played even better, and I was still enjoying it reasonably well last night. There's two things from a gameplay perspective that have bothered me. One, it really feels like it needs a melee attack because you're like, especially with the shotgun, you'll run out of bullets when things are jumping in your face, and I kind of just want to swing the back end of the gun to gun butt things away type thing. And there's no melee attack, and it just feels like it's lacking slightly, especially when you're actually physically waving the gun around type thing.
I would have expected like one of the front, you were mentioning like the trigger at the front and a button. Well, if I had been designing the game, I would have expected that button to be a kind of a melee that kind of just jutted it out or something.
Yeah, that could work, but one's your alt fire and the other one, it could be context sensitive and just do that, but generally it does like a scanning thing, and you're scanning fragments to like pick up. Basically, you get separated from those two doctors I mentioned, Dr. Moon and Dr. Tyson before, and they're kind of, you're trying to catch up with them and catch up with where they are. And one of them's like staying in a habitat and the other one's walking across, and you're following the one that's walking across, trying to catch up with her the whole time. For some reason, she didn't run into all the crappy, like, massive gunfights that you have on the way. She's absolutely fine. But you keep on, like, catching up with her. And it's a weird way of doing the story, but it does kind of mean that you get that sense of isolation and being alone on this alien planet while still having these people that you're connecting with and getting the story told through type thing. And again, I won't go into spoilers of what's going on, but I kind of like the fact that the mysteries that they're setting up for what's happening and stuff like that. The other thing that I find more annoying than it really should be is there's a lot of times where you're up against a gap or a window and shooting through that window, and you're fine when you're shooting, but both the kind of alt fires that do the big explosion type things, it seems very a bit weirdly sensitive on, no, you weren't standing perfectly in this window when you fired, so this splash damage killed you. And there is no more annoying way of dying in a game than splash damage. And that seems even more annoying in VR for some reason. But generally speaking, the actual gunplay, the actual story, and all that type of stuff, I'm really quite liking so far. I really like there's something really nicely visceral about like kind of physically looking down a sight, and I'm often like closing one eye to kind of aim with it as well type thing.
Not what you want to do in VR, but
it's weird in VR, but it kind of works as well, which I'm even more surprised about as well. But yeah, like really enjoying that so far. The survival stuff, like there's extra modes as well outside. There's a kind of a challenge mode where it's setting you in each level and then like gives you like a score attack to do type thing. But I've only played through the first one of those, but it's in the first area of the game. The first area of the game, there really wasn't very many enemies, and this is heavily populated with enemies. So it does seem to be like different. You know, it's the same environments recycled, but it's different than just playing through the game again, basically. So so that's quite cool. That looks all right. And there is cooperative modes where you're like fighting against waves of enemies and stuff as well. Which is where
is that the only co-op then? Can you not play through the story in co-op?
I'm not sure if you can play through the story or not. I haven't had someone to co-op with, damn it, so I wouldn't know.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. Right, now, look, I've been quite excited about that, and that has been quite cool. One game that I do want to talk about quickly, even though we are running long on time. Sorry, Mr. Coleman. But yeah, this is one I need to talk about because I got a review copy of it, possibly to talk about. But it's been the really nice counterpoint to Farpoint as well. Whereas Farpoint's like really kind of shoot the aliens in the face, and you know, kind of really kind of visceral and in your face type thing. Seasons After the Fall is the complete opposite. It's very serene and peaceful and
pleasant.
Lovely and nice, and it's just the perfect way for me to calm down after the complete opposite, basically. Like literally to the point where there are no enemies in Season After the Fall. There is nothing to threaten you. There are no big drops you can fall in. You don't drown in water. You swim. Like, there is literally nothing that is threatening your life. There is a kind of weird kind of background threat of the overall story, and it seems it could just be me mistrusting things, but there seems there's a slight sinister edge to things. Basically, there's a narrator that keeps on talking to you and telling you what's happening, basically. And at the very start of the game, it's very abstract. You're kind of floating up through something. You're this kind of ball of light, and you're floating, like touching other balls of light and coming up through the earth, as it kind of turns out. And then, but as I said, it's quite abstract. And then you kind of come out, and the narrator keeps on referring to you as Little Seed. And I don't quite know what that's referring to yet. But as the narrator is very nice and kind of speaks to you nicely. But as I said, there's some sort of air of cynicism there. And I'm not entirely sure if that's just me or just part of the game. But basically...
Are you reading too much into this?
Quite possibly. But you take over the body of a fox, and you're kind of possessing this fox so that you can use him to kind of, do things within the game, basically. Right, now, anyone that's a long-term listener to the show will know that I am not a fan of platformers.
Yes.
So the fact that I have volunteered to play this for, review purposes on the show...
Which is a 2D puzzle platformer. So that's like the wrong mix for you.
Exactly.
But go on.
But it should tell you... it should speak volumes about the art style and how much that attracted me to, because it's a beautiful looking game. Like, it's kind of, almost looks like a painted feel to it as well. The fox has got like a long flowing tail and very much looks like, a painted style of animation and stuff like that. And it's just, not only, was I attracted to it for that thing, but I am actually really enjoying it. It's almost not like any other game that I've played. I've played similar things, and the one thing that kind of stands out is anyone that heard me talk about Hue last year. this is an even stronger art style perhaps than Hue was, but that kind of appealed to me on the kind of colour theory level, and this appealed to me on the kind of just the general art style. But the gameplay I find really nice. I find it so relaxing to play. Like, there are like challenging type jumps to make and stuff like that, but not like massive frustratingly like, oh, you've got to be exact with all your jumps over a series of things.
It sounds like the game wants you to succeed.
Yeah, and it's kind of got some very abstract puzzles to it, which I kind of like. Like, you're in control of, or you gain control of these different seasons by visiting the guardians of each season, basically. So the first one you visit is a big bear, basically, and you go and visit him in his cave, and he basically gives you this, I think they call it essence or something like that, but it gives you this element that you then got to take back to where the narrator was talking to you, basically.
Yeah.
And that she kind of then turns that into something you can possess, like in a kind of greater sense, so that you can permanently switch between them. And at first, it's just quite simple. Like, if you're in winter, then lakes will be frozen over, so you can jump from the surface of them onto higher platforms, type thing.
Okay.
And if you change it to autumn, then mushrooms will grow, and there'll be platforms that you can jump onto. As it develops later into the game, you're combining those powers in different ways, and it's dependent on the order that you're doing things. So, for instance, there's like plumes of water that are kind of jetting out of the ground, and in autumn they're a certain height, and in spring they're a higher height. So it depends.
So this is basically a Metroidvania.
Yeah,
this is you collect the seasons, the essences of the seasons. And then you have to kind of switch between them to progress to later levels, basically. Okay.
It's not, obviously there's no like combat type thing. There's no enemies for you to face, so there's not really that type of thing. There are kind of like weird creatures that are scuttling around that you're chasing from one area to the next to kind of help with some of the slight abstract puzzle type things. But as I said, there's no like enemies that you're actually encountering. But yeah, I didn't really think of the Metroidvania comparison, but it does certainly have elements of that, because you need to have certain things to go. And it's weird, like at a certain stage you can actually seemingly branch out and go in the direction that you fancy, but the narrator kind of suggests where you should go. And earlier in portion of that, it will actually tell you if you're going the wrong way. The narrator will say, you don't want to go that way, little seed. You want to go back the way you came and back down there, type of thing. And it was just like, oh, okay, that's quite interesting. But yeah, as I said, like, it's a really enjoyable game. I want to spend a bit more time with it to get a little bit deeper and actually find out, like, if I'm right about things being a bit more sinister or not, or just to see, like, how it actually plays out. But as I said, the actual just the playing through the game, I find really enjoyable and just really, like, as I said, nice and peaceful and serene and relaxing. And yeah, anyone that like has any interest in platform games, you'll probably take to it even more than I have, and I've taken to it quite a lot. So yeah, I was pulled to it for the art style, but I'm definitely staying around for some of the other stuff that it's bringing to the table that makes it quite unusual, but also really enjoyable.
Okay, before we head away, I'm just going to say, if you find out at the end of this game that it is sinister and somehow the red fox dies, don't tell me, but just tell me not to play the game, because that would ruin my day. Ruin my day.
Yeah, I'm getting quite attached to the fox as well, even though I'm taking him over and making him change the seasons willy-nilly. But hey, all good, all good. Right, yeah, we really need to wrap up and get the hell out of here, because this has been a long show and we've got a bit to insert anyway. And Coleman's ill, poor Coleman, so we don't want to be taking up all of his time. I think he's got an ear infection as well, which is probably the worst thing to be hearing.
I've had those
hour
before.
Of me in one of your ears that's working and not in the other one that isn't. So please get well soon, Coleman. We can't survive without you, sir, so please do come running back. It's lovely to have Diarmuid here and stuff, obviously, But we need you back. We need you back, sir. Right now,
I concur. We need you back.
At this point, we'd normally be talking what's coming up for this Tabletop Tuesday. Now, that is a little bit more in the air than I'd like at the moment through a slight snafu. But normal service should be resuming in time for next Tuesday. So do tune in to either meetup.com/Tabletop Tuesday, or just come along to BigRedBarel and look in the top left corner, and there will be details of that later in the week. I say later in the week, and this is probably coming out on Friday, so maybe on the weekend, but I should hopefully have some details on it tomorrow. But I will be picking an awesome game for next week, so make sure you don't miss out on it. And for anyone who doesn't know, you can come along to Loading Bar in Dalston. Every Tuesday we'll have a different feature game, and you can win that feature game just by trying it out in the evening. So brilliant way to get introduced to board and card games and the type of people that play them. Come along to Tabletop Tuesday. It's always a good time. Right, and I'm going to get through the rest of this fairly quickly because we don't have too many people to thank this week, and we are running a bit long. So from the forums, I would like to thank Literal Truth, who is someone I haven't seen on the forums before, I don't think, unless he's changed his name. So welcome, sir. Stealthy Joe. Stealthy, do you like the way that I completely ruled out any creepy Coleman this week? If he comes in with some creepiness, I can't help it. He's editing. I can't do anything about that, sir. But I
gave Chris the ear infection.
Right in the ear. But yeah, also from Twitter, thank you to Mr. Sad Wizard, Mr. Mark Fawcett, who's been saying very nice things on Twitter this week, and Mr. Will Driver. And yes, you thanked us for the shout out and for the lovely show last week. Sir, you are a lovely person. You deserve a lovely shout out every week of the year. So thank you very much, and thank you very much for listening first. Would you like to do the Facebooks?
Yes, indeed. So on Facebook, we'd like to thank Steve Egan and Mark Gardner.
Thank you very much, one and all, for coming along and putting up with our nonsense and then saying nice things about it on the forums as well. I also heard back from, I don't know if you heard my interview this week, Miss Dan Sheridan of...
I haven't listened to it yet. It's on my phone. I'm going to be listening to it on the way into work.
I won't hold it against you, but I have heard back from him that the people from End Dreams listened to it, and we apparently have some new fans from End Dreams as well. So
hello, fans.
Slightly disproportionate amount of people in the games industry that actually listen to us as opposed to members of the public. I don't mind, that's quite cool. But hello, End Dreams people, welcome. I hope you've stuck around for this long to hear this nonsense. But yes, thank you very much, and all good. And yes, myself and Diarmuid will be talking a bit more about a couple of their games because they were kind enough to furnish us with review codes for their previous titles as well. So you're hearing more about that in the future too. But
Indeed.
Yes, other than that, we should get the hell out of here before Coleman kills me. So
it's about that time.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Diarmuid. Excellent to have you along, sir. Always
You are
good.
most welcome.
Yeah.
Most welcome.
One day we'll be able to take over the whole thing. We'll just talk PSVR for the whole week.
It begins today. It begins today.
But yeah, cool. Thanks for joining you. I don't think... Well, I probably could have done this without you, to be honest, but it would have been a hell of a lot worse and people would have hated me for it. So thank you.
Possibly longer, yes.
Thank you. Possibly could have gone on twice as long, yeah. But hey. Anyway, cool. Thank you very much, Diarmuid. Pleasure to have you. And thank you very much, everyone else, for listening in. Toodle bye. We will see you all next week.
Bye-bye.
We won't see you, but you'll hear us. That's good enough.
Yeah, that's the way that works, I think.
Your ears are quite welcome
For the podcasting goodness that you just heard.
Why not roll on over
To BigRedBarel.com
for more podcasts,
news, reviews, and videos from the biggest, reddest site on the internet. BigRedBarel.com.
Well, you know what they say, Coleman. If you want some, take some. Get it together, baby. Come and get your love. Wah! 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 Go see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 in cinemas and give me all the money. Wah!